Hello, hello, hello. You hear that sultry sax? You know what time it is. It's time for movie night here in the Anorex Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, as always, Samee Ramirez. And today we're talking about the latest installment in the MCU. We're in phase 4, full swing. Today we're talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, directed by Destin Daniel Cretton. I got it right. Starring Simu and Aquafina, who were great in this movie. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about it today. And I think even more excited to talk about this film today is my guest, Martino. Dom, how are you doing today?
Yes, definitely. And that director's name changed about 5 times in my non-spoiler review, so don't even worry about it. But uh
Got it right the
Destin
first
Daniel Cretton,
time.
very talented individual. But anyway, yeah, you know me, Sammy. I've been holding this in for 2 weeks. Spoilers, so
Yeah.
I'm ready to take the deep dive finally. It's been a rough one, I'm not gonna lie, because it's something I've just been it's a conversation I've been waiting to have. So yeah, I'm excited. Let's get into it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too. All right, so we're just gonna dive right into this. We've been waiting a long time. We're just diving right in. So I'm gonna start off with my overall thoughts.
Okay.
So I'm afraid that it's gonna sound like I hated this movie. I did not hate this movie. I thought it was quite good. Overall, if you ask me what I thought, I'd be like, it's pretty good. It was all right. Not
Mm-hmm.
bad. That's fine. That's my overall opinion. You know what I mean? When something is just, it was fine. It was whatever. I've pinpointed it down to, I think my issue is in the script and in the writing. I think is my biggest issue. I've come to realize that I feel like Destin Daniel Cretton really did the best he could with this script, because I have problems with the pacing. I have problems with some
Mm-hmm.
dialogue. I have problems with character beats and when they happen and how they happen. I have problem with characters and them fitting stereotypes. And all of this is, it all comes back to the script. This all of these things were things written in the script. Because I do think Simu did an incredible job. He was badass. It was awesome. Aquafina was funny. She was doing her thing. I thought everybody was doing their thing and doing it well. The action was cool. The cinematography looked very beautiful, but it was just, I felt like it deserved
Mm-hmm.
to be everything visually in this movie deserved to be in a better physical movie. I think it deserved to be in a better script. And I say that because like multiple times during this movie I've been like, I if you were just to give like me, a 23-year-old nobody, like a crack at the script, I would be able to tell you like where you can show me something instead of just saying it in dialogue, or maybe how to tie in better things and how to we can move around some of the chess pieces to make it look like a better, fuller story, in my opinion, again. And that was very frustrating for me to sit there and to just know that it was kind of to me it felt lazy in that way, because I knew they could make it better for me, and it felt lazy that they didn't. But I mean, I'll get into the specifics of that when we get to these
Sure.
moments. All that being said, Dom, now is the time. Your time
It's
has come.
gonna get hot in here today, folks. I can feel it. I can feel it coming. Uh, okay. Overall
And I
thoughts.
know I'm in the minority, and I'm cool being in the
Okay.
minority.
As long
That's
as
how I
you,
felt about this movie.
so
I'm cool with
long
it.
as
There's a lot
you
of people
accept that.
who still think
Oh,
that Taskmaster was the villain of Black Widow, and that's why Black Widow's a bad movie, because the villain was bad. And that's fine.
I
I
disagree with that
accept that.
too. I
They
disagree with
just
that
gotta,
too.
I
But
disagree with that to my core.
yeah,
But again, they can live happily and I can live happily. We're all good. All tea, no shade, as they say on the
yeah.
streets,
Okay.
on my streets.
Your
Anyway,
streets.
now, Dom, the mic is yours.
Oh my god. Okay. Finally. All right. This movie is awesome. I can't believe you paid money and saw the same Shang-Chi that I did, Sammy. Like, just right off the bat, I'll get that out of the way. Because I don't know what you watched. It wasn't what I saw. But that's why movies are subjective. All right.
Yes.
It's all film is subjective. I'm going to try to stay cool. But this
Yes.
movie, I'm crazy about it. I think to move back into my history with, and I've had people disagree with me on this, but I've also had a lot of people agree with me on this. So I don't know. I don't know where the consensus lies. I mean, I know that most people are pretty hot on this movie, but my history with Japanese cinema came to a forefront with this because if you watch this movie, it's proper Japanese cinema. The hero's journey is proper. You know, it really is. It plays into that a lot, but it also spares no expense when it comes to how much it can actually do, how much it can throw in there. The cinematography in this movie is beautiful. It's some of the most beautiful cinematography I think a Marvel movie has had, if not the most beautiful cinematography a Marvel movie's had. Actually, I'll go ahead and say that it's the most visually stunning Marvel movie I've seen. Honestly,
Also,
outside of yeah,
real quick, I just want to clarify because I wasn't sure, but I just had to look. Like, I think Shang-Chi is a Chinese character, actually. You said Japanese.
I,
What I'm finding online is Chinese.
I'm sorry. So Asian cinema. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll give it a broad stroke. I'm sorry about that. A lot of I watch
I just wanted
mostly.
I wasn't sure either. I
It's
just know
fair.
because I just did a
No,
Google
thank you for
search.
that. That's very fair,
Yeah.
and I appreciate it because I watch all sorts of Asian cinema, not just Japanese, but it's mostly been Japanese. But
Mhm.
this reminds me of a lot of
It's
the
never like directly said in dialogue or
no,
anything in the movie.
but
So to
yeah,
be fair,
but it
yeah.
reminds me of a lot of the Asian cinema I watch, and
It's
that's
it's kind of like Black Panther, you know what I mean, where it's not just one African country. It's
sure,
kind of a little bit of everything.
yeah,
And like, Asia is a whole continent, but it's a little bit of they're all very different. You know what I mean? Japanese and Chinese culture are very different from, like Korean and Vietnamese culture. But I think I see what you mean. There's a lot of different things for sure.
yeah, and I think that when you're, I think one of the things I respect most about Asian cinema when I watch it is the fact that you can get away with a lot more. And a lot of that is due to the fact that, when you direct action, in Asian cinema and you have an Asian director directing action, it tends to be a hell of a lot better. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're gaining points on that alone. The other thing, I mean, I'm not trying to start an argument. I'm just going to say my thought. The other thing I want to say too is if you watch a lot of Asian cinema, it is very dialogue heavy. Like that's one thing about Asian cinema that is just so true to it. It's very dialogue heavy 9 times out of 10. And I've always appreciated that about Asian cinema. I appreciate that about a lot of cinema. You give me more talkies, honestly. I want more talkies. I want things that where I want long conversations of dialogue. I like that.
To,
And
to
this
be
movie had a
clear,
lot of
your
it.
favorite movie of the year last year was indeed Malcolm and Marie. You're
Correct.
not fucking around
So
when you
it
say
checks out,
you
right?
want the talkies.
It's true, and it checks out,
Yeah.
right? I mean, come on. I mean, I really do. I think that dialogue, when done right, can really serve a movie, and I think in this case, personally, it was done very well. I know Sammy doesn't like the script, and that's fine. We'll get into it, but for me, I actually thought this dialogue was very well because I always thought it was being delivered by somebody talented, and I always thought it was being delivered in a way that was believable to the character it was being delivered by. And the other reason I actually like the exposition per se here too is because every time there was a scene of exposition, it was giving me more character. It was giving me more vibes off of a character, so it worked for me. There is slight pacing issues in the middle act for sure. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like it was paced well throughout, but for the most part, overall, it's paced pretty well for me. Like I think the middle act where that does have slight pacing issues, I think it's very minor for myself. Because for the most part, I mean, I got over it pretty quickly. Once I saw where everything was going, I got over it really quickly. And once I saw where the third act went and ultimately all the implications it eventually had on the universe at large, I was just thrilled and I didn't care. I was just so happy to be there. I was so happy to be on for the adventure. And the other thing that I would throw out there too is just this cast is incredible through and through. I like that this cast is very grounded. It feels grounded. Um, in the sense that like we get first of all you look at Simu Liu playing Shang-Chi himself. I don't think that
He's
we
good.
I think that this could have easily been, not that he's not funny in the movie. He has very good comedic moments, but I think that this easily could have been like a lot of, not trying to offend anybody, but like a lot of other Marvel characters where they're just like joke, 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 joke. And Simu Liu plays it not that way. He plays it very straight. While having organic, natural,
Mm-hmm.
funny moments through his dialogue. And that's what I respect in Shang-Chi. That's what I respect in Doctor Strange, and that's what I respect in T'Challa. I think that those are my favorite three because they're not sitting there just trying to go for the joke all the time. It's not that I don't like humor, I just want it to be played naturally when it does happen and in a very grounded way. But Simu Liu played this so incredibly grounded. I think he is just perfect for this role. And I think he is one of the most charismatic people we've had in this universe. And I'm excited to see more of him. I also think his friend Katie was really excellent. I really like that we got to know her too throughout the script, throughout the movie, I guess, more or less. I mean, because she is right there with Shang. And I think that she kind of works as his anchor in a lot of ways throughout this movie with his struggles because the more we get to know uh, Katie, it's almost like the more we get to know Shang, or vice versa in a way, because they grew up together clearly, and they have a lot of the same interests as one another. They both like karaoke. They both like socializing with their friends. You know what I mean? They have these really great interests that are shown right at the beginning of the movie, and the whole time, all I can think was I want to hang out with these two cats. I want to go out and drink with them. I want to go out and have karaoke night with them. They seem like really fun people and just real people too. That's what I love so much about it. They just both seem so real, and I don't think we've had something like that. Like you look at like T'Challa, for example. You love him. He's a great character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's one of the more grounded ones, but there's not a lot about T'Challa that you can technically relate to because he's kind of in a world that we can't relate to. But these people in this movie, they're on planet Earth and they just feel they feel so real to it. They feel down to earth. I guess that's kind of a pun, but in all honesty, that's I really think that they do feel very down to earth. And I think that's part of what made me love this so much is just the fact that we're following two characters who just have a friendship. And that's the other thing. They picked a man and a woman, and it just was platonic, which was also refreshing. I really enjoyed that about it. Aquafina is so funny. She is like one of the highlights of this movie. And she really makes it work. I think that pairing of her and Simu Liu is a lot of what makes this work because you could take a lot of the elements out of this movie. Take all the superhero stuff out. Sure, the movie wouldn't have been as good, but I'd still want to see a movie about Shang-Chi and Katie. I would watch that movie because they're so much fun to watch, and they had such good chemistry on screen. And I would just watch a movie about them. But you get into this superhero elements, the fantastical elements of it. And we could talk about Wenwu quite a bit because I think that this is a villain with actual motivations, who we need to. I mean, we haven't had a villain with this much motivation since like Killmonger and Thanos, and it was really nice to see it again because we haven't had it in the recent Marvel properties unless we're gonna just assume that Wanda's gonna become a villain. I know Sammy and I are huge fans of that theory. Like
Yeah.
which I would love, and she's a great character, don't get me wrong, we've had great characters, but the villains in these TV shows have just been weak in comparison to what I think Wenwu
Can,
did
I'm
here.
gonna I'm gonna jump in real
Yeah,
quick to just
I've
say,
been
can
talking a
you
long time,
believe
so please
how
go ahead.
this is a joke, half joke kind of thing, but like I just think about like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That fucking cast, man, that is going to be the Avengers
Yeah.
4.5, I feel like. You know what I mean? We
Mm-hmm.
had Captain America, Avengers 2.5, and this is going to be 4.5. Because, like, what do we have right now? We have the entire cast of WandaVision. We have the entire cast of Loki. We have the entire cast of Spider Man No Way Home, the entire cast of Doctor Strange, first of all, and now Shang-Chi and Katie. So
Yeah.
like that is Avengers 4.5.
Yeah.
That's what it's I'm calling it right now. That's a
Yeah.
meme that people are gonna make, but I just made it right now before all of you.
Yeah. Except for
That's insane. Yeah.
Tony Leung, keep him dead, please. I love him as a character, but
Yeah.
like I don't want them to pull the
And
switcheroo.
they usually do. Marvel tends to do that with their these big villains. They're a one and done.
Yeah,
They're there to get the hero where they need to be, and then they die.
yeah. The best villains have died for good so far, at least. I mean, you look at Thanos,
Mm-hmm.
Killmonger, and I think now Wenwu needs to be a part of the conversation for best villain. He's not my favorite that they've had, but I think he needs to be in the conversation because while very expositional, sure, he has real clear cut reasons as to why he's doing what he's doing, and you understand it throughout this movie. And you know, there's parts when he's explaining himself in this movie, and I'm looking at Tony Leung like as an actor, and like even though I know he's going to be the villain in this movie, I'm listening to him talking. I'm like, is he a good guy though? You know what I mean? Like I think
Right.
about that when I listen to him talk and explain himself. I think that's why I love the exposition in this movie so much, is because when he's explaining himself, I'm getting this whole new vibe off him. I'm like, oh wait a minute, you know, he is a father. You know what I mean? Shitty father, but he is a father. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you think about it that way, and you think about, you know, how he had the love of his life taken from him, which that's strong. That stuff played so
Yeah.
strong for me. Like I love that. Like that gave me so much context as to, you know, where this villain was ultimately going to end up, and this isn't something that we get in a lot of Marvel movies. Did I like Taskmaster and Black Widow? Yeah, one of the better villains too, but like I just can't compare it to, you know, what was done with Wenwu here, and your movie's only as good as its villain. I mean, let's be honest. But you know, I think that with Wenwu, it was the gravitas that Tony Leung brought. It was really all about that for me. And I bought into it by the time, again, we're going into deep dive spoilers here, but by the time we get to this ending, and like, I know you disagree with me, but I think it was done well enough. I mean, I was feeling that epicness that I felt with Obi-Wan and Anakin when they were going at it, you know, at the end, with between Tony Leung and Simu Liu, Shang-Chi. I felt that because you got, you know, father and son, you know, but it's on the same hand. There's kind of this thing to it where it's like the performances and the back and forth, and you're listening to it and the way that they're playing it, and it's like, this is strong stuff though. Like this is strong. It's so different too, because they could have easily done like a Star Wars thing with this, where they were like, he didn't know that was his father or something along those lines. They could have played the whole story that way, and then like, you know, led up to that at the end, and we all would have been like, oh man. But instead, they actually did something really unique with it. They you know, let Shang-Chi in on. Shang-Chi knows his motivations, you know what I mean? And so by the end of it, you're like, but even though he knows it, he's still against it, you know what I mean? And so you got that thing, and then you have um sort of this, and I think that this is a big thing in Asian culture, in Asian filmmaking, is you kind of have this like passing of the torch moment too, you know, upon his death, and I thought that was really incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing about the third act too, I mean, that I want to throw out here is again, the implications it adds to the universe, because now we have this whole other world out there that I think, while I think I still like Black Panther better. I'm really struggling with it. I'm pretty sure I still like Black Panther better as a movie. I think that when you add this whole other world, I think it actually has more implications on the universe than like say Wakanda did, because while I love the look of Wakanda and I love that battle and everything that they were able to do there, when I look at the world, you know, Shang-Chi here, it's like, man, you got dragons, which are dope as fuck, and all these just like fantastical elements that I never expected this universe to get. And so when I saw that, and by the way, in my screening, when the dragons came up, people went fucking insane for it, because it was like this whole new thing, and we were like, and the fight was so amazing. It was so good, that dual dragon fight at the end there, so good, and they were visually stunning and great. The other critique I have on this though is plot. It's not necessarily, when you look at the overall plot, even though I think it's structured in a way that makes it just feel so relentlessly epic. When you look at the overall story, it's not necessarily something we haven't seen before. I mean, we definitely have had black I mean, we definitely, like with Black Widow. You got somebody who's trying to escape their family past. Kind of the same thing with Shang-Chi. You got somebody who's trying to escape their family past. So it's kind of like we just saw this somewhere else, so that's kind of a critique on it too. Is like I wish that they maybe have waited like a film or two to like get into this one, because it was like I feel like that kind of plot around it, like I just kind of saw somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Even though the differences, I think that like Black Widow was like not ashamed to show her skills that she learned through her experiences, as
Mhm.
opposed to like Shang-Chi, who was just always kind of trying to hide it. The other thing I want to say too about this, and like a lot of people aren't mentioning this, is I saw so many Spider-Man influences in this too, which I really dug. I'm talking like
Mhm.
Sam Raimi Spider-Man,
Mhm.
between the sort of cage fighting thing that went down, that was like so
Right,
taken from
yeah.
Sam Raimi Spider-Man, and even the bus scene, like the aesthetic of it, at least, like reminded me of the bus scene in Spider-Man
No,
2.
yeah.
Yeah, but by the way, the bus scene. Oh my god. That was the first moment in this movie I went insane. I was like, "Oh my gosh, see, this is what I want. Give me action where the director, I don't know why this is such a problem in the MCU, but no director can keep their fucking action in the frame. And they seem to want to use a lot of stunt doubles and shit like that. This movie, no. They were like, Simu Lulu, learn your shit. Go at it. We're going to keep you in the frame as much as possible." And it looked amazing and it worked well and it played beautifully. And it's another reason the film just feels so grounded to me. Yeah.
I really did quite enjoy that bus scene. It was awesome. I just what was running through my mind the whole time that was going, literally, as that scene was happening, I was like, why the fuck was this not the first scene you showed me? I get that, like, I thought it was cool that they started off with I feel like it was Chinese, I'm not 100% sure, but like the movie started off in foreign language and I was like, damn, respect, Marvel, we love to see it.
That
And it
was
just
great
started
too.
off with subtitles and everything, we love to see it. But I was like, once that bus scene happened, I was like, the movie should have started, and it should have started when he wakes up in his apartment, I think.
Okay.
And you could have had him having a dream or something, but like a quick 30 seconds, no longer, montage dream sequence thing. This is how I would have written this movie. Just I'm gonna fix the movie for myself.
Okay.
What would have made it better for me? It should have started there, and then we go into him going to his job and everything, and you can
Mm-hmm.
introduce Katie. I think that dialogue should have been cleaned up a little bit, because I really don't like the thing where they're like she was like, Sean, we've been friends for 10 years, do you remember when we met in middle school and we did that thing? And it's just like, nobody fucking talks like that. It's a type of dialogue used for entertainment and entertainment alone in
Go
order
back,
to
go back, go
convey
back, go back, go back,
information.
go back really quick. I missed what you
What were you
said
saying?
about the dialogue. Which piece? Which
Where'd you
piece? I
miss?
missed that. Which piece?
The part where there's a part like at the very beginning, which I would keep, of when you meet Sean and Katie really at their job, at their valet job,
Okay.
and they take that car.
Yeah.
That there's a part where Katie says something like, she's like, Sean, come on, you've known me for 10 years and we were friends since middle school. Do you remember when we met? And she says something like that. It's very expositional. And it ticked me off because, again, nobody
Hmm.
talks like that. I would never go to my best friend and be like, oh my God, can you believe we've known each other for 10 years now? Do you remember in high school when we did this thing and that thing and Mr. This did that? I'm like, nobody talks like that. It's just a convention in media and entertainment and storytelling to convey information through talking instead of showing something.
You've
And
never
I
done
that pisses
something
me
with your
off.
friend where you've thought back on something and you were like, you know me for this long now. You never done that?
Yes, what I'm saying in the context of this movie, at that point in the movie, they it felt like they needed to convey this
Well,
information
they
and they
did.
worked the dialogue around. Well, yes, but here's the thing. They worked the dialogue around the fact that they needed to get this information on. I don't feel like the intent to me did not seem to be, these are two best friends and we need to understand the core of their relationship, because the thing is, like, it's not important that they've been friends for 10 years. What's
I
important is
think
that
it's
they have a
important.
strong, what's important, it's not important that I know how long they were friends. It's important that I see that they've been friends for 10 years. You know what I mean? You can
Yeah,
tell me,
but
you can tell me that you've been friends with somebody for 10 years, but unless I see you interact with them and I can tell that you've been friends for 10 years, that's different. That is the difference between brilliant filmmaking and lazy filmmaking, again, in my humble opinion.
yeah,
My
but if
23
you're
year old college
talking
student, nobody opinion.
all the time when I'm talking to my friends, it's like, damn, we've known each other for, however many years. It's like that's
Well,
something that
yeah, but
people
Dom,
say
yeah,
all the
but
time.
yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
That's all. I understand that, but you have to understand that it, in the context of the film and of a script and of a story
Yeah.
and of the fact that these people sat down and were paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to write a Marvel script, and they decided that, it feels like, to me, it felt like they knew, it feels like they don't trust me to know that they're best friends for 10 years. They need to tell me so I know. But the thing is, a brilliant filmmaker would not need to verbalize that they've been friends for 10 years. They would be able to fully show me through their actions and plot and acting that they have been friends for 10 years, which I feel like they did, you know what I mean? Which is why the script bugs me like that, because I feel like they did do a good job of their chemistry. I
And,
didn't need to know that information,
and you think
that
Thor
type of things
Ragnarok
like
has
that.
brilliant dialogue?
Well,
Just
what do you mean? What would you say in Thor Ragnarok is comparable to the scene that I'm talking
oh
about?
my god, everything that fucking Carl Urban says in that movie is very
Give me an
amateur.
example.
Oh, what did he say about he had the shake weight in his hand? He said something so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
I can't remember the
But that,
line,
the
but
thing
I
is,
remember it bothers me every
that's a
time.
dumb joke. The difference, though, is that's a what I'm talking, that's a dumb joke. I'm not talking about a dumb joke. I'm talking about lazy expositional writing and
Okay,
character writing.
so what would you have done
Lazy
to?
character and expositional writing.
Okay, so they have to set up. I'm trying to understand you. I'm not trying to argue. I'm trying to understand you.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to set
Yes.
up that Shang-Chi and Aquafina are friends, right? They have to set that up. Like they have to at least, whether they say 10 years or not, right? Like they have to set up that they're friends. So you would just rather them
Yes.
cut it completely and just like feel the bond, the line.
Yeah, I would have cut that line completely, and I would have had them, she could say something like, they could reference, instead of saying like, we've been friends for 10 years, she could have said
I don't
something
know.
like, do you remember, she could have been like, Sean, come on, do you remember that time in sixth grade when John Smith stole my bike and we stole your mom's car, or what, or we stole my mom's car and we chased him down in the car and we got in a wreck or something. That is character. That's interesting. That tells me a lot about these two and their friendship versus we've known each other for 10 years. Something like that. That's what I mean by like, show me, put character into it. But it's a lot harder to think of a situation like that. It's a lot easier to say they've known each other for 10 years, which is why I say it's lazy. That makes sense.
Yeah, it just didn't bother me apparently
That's
as much
fine.
as it bothered you because I get what you're saying, but I don't
Yeah.
look at it as a flaw. To me, like the way that
I see it as a flaw because I recognize it as telling versus showing, and that to me will always be lazy. You know what I mean?
but yeah, I just didn't see it. I still don't see it. And granted, I haven't seen the movie in 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
I still don't see it just based on
It's
what you're saying
the
as
yeah.
as
It's the
being
you yeah. It's
being
the show don't tell rule that I hold,
sure,
that to me is like my holy rule. That's the golden rule for me.
but
You must show it. Do anything you can tell, show first.
mhm,
Only tell me things that you can't show in movies and
right,
TV, all of that. That is the golden rule for me. Like, if you want me to like your thing, show me everything. Only tell me what you can't show
right.
me,
Um,
you know?
but for me, I still just based on hearing it again from you at least.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I haven't seen it in 2 weeks, so I got to
Yeah.
rewatch it. But and I plan to. I'll go pay to see this one again. Actually, I really loved it. But
Mm-hmm.
the for me, I mean, even just hearing it that way to me, like, and thinking back to it, I heard the line and I didn't think anything of it. I thought for myself.
Which is fine.
That
Yeah.
was just, I didn't like look at that as like the exposition for their friendship. I just looked at it
Hmm.
as something she said, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I saw
I
it
saw it as a
more.
lack. You know what I mean? I saw it as an easy way out to tell me that they've been friends for 10 years.
No, and like a lot of
Because
it,
that's the first thing in
yeah.
film and stuff, when somebody says something like that, like we've been friends for 10 years, or somebody makes a hard claim about someone or something, but I haven't seen it yet. I'm like, okay, you're lying, then show me. Because, so many movies are about people that are lying and it's about skewed points of view. And that's the point. So for me, it's like, you must show me as an audience member, because anybody
Mm-hmm.
can say whatever bullshit. But unless you are
Yeah.
showing it to me, I'm not going to fully, for me, I don't fully grab onto it as truth unless I have seen it. Because so many times
Right.
in movies, people say whatever and it means whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know the effect that
That's why
you
it's so important to me. You know what I mean?
I
It's very important for me in understanding
right.
movies and TV and media and
And
stuff.
I understand the effect that something like that has on you, because this is
Mm-hmm.
going to be a weird example, but going back to like the Harry Potter video games, like the
Yeah.
early ones, before they got better,
Uh-huh.
but like
The Lego ones or regular
no,
ones?
no, just the regular, like they had
Regular ones.
the
Oh, okay.
Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets.
I've
um
only played the Lego ones, so.
like every time like a character would pop up, and granted I'd seen the movies at that point that I was playing those
Mm-hmm.
games, so I kind of knew everything and read the books. So every time a character would pop up, it'd be like, this is Filch, he this that and this, and
Right.
this is Hagrid, he this that and this. Always bothered me, so I understand the
Mm-hmm.
effect that you're having, because it's like
That's kind of
I
how it felt. It
right.
felt like, this is Katie. They've been friends for 10 years. This is her mom. This is her grandma.
Yeah,
And she is witty and cool.
yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Fun.
Versus let's have a scene that tells me all that information
Yeah,
versus just a pop up with
yeah.
the information. So,
Fun
yes,
video games, by the
100%.
way. Let me point out to the audience, I love the old Harry Potter video games. I just thought the dialogue was awful,
Nice.
and I always did since I was a kid. They just, every piece of
Mm,
dialogue in those things are exposition. It's bad. But I understand the effect it had on you.
yikes.
I'm sorry you felt that way about it, because I think that
Mhm.
there's definitely a version of that. I know there's a version of that where you watch it and it just rolls off your back. But
Yeah.
so I'm sorry that that was the experience you had with it, because I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as the writers just, that's something that Katie would say. Like, that's how I saw it. And a lot of it is because a lot of
Mhm.
the stuff to me was just kind of shown later, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the bond
Right.
was fleshed out throughout the movie. But continue.
Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
where else do you want to go? What else do you want to talk
Shit,
about?
almost everything. I
Lead
mean,
the way.
okay. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, for being the one that's more excited about this, I guess I will.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, so for me,
Tell me what you want to talk about.
yeah. Well, we already jumped into the bus scene, which is almost immediately after this.
Mhm.
I thought the karaoke stuff was so much fun, and like that's the other thing about, like,
That was fun.
you go
Yeah.
to the car scene, and you're like, well, yeah, we go to the car scene, um
Hmm.
you get that stuff like almost immediately, right? So for me, that was another reason I was like,
Hmm.
I'm just kind of feeling the bond through them just hanging out and stuff. So it just, like, I guess that's another reason maybe the exposition, so to speak, didn't bother me so much.
Right, because
But
they do like hang out a lot in the
yeah,
first
and
chunk
you
of
just,
the
yeah,
movie.
and
Yeah.
that's stuff that to me is like very show no tell.
And they
um
do have the conversation, which was a bit better when they meet up with their friends to have drinks
yeah, because
and
that
they're doing that. That was
feels
a bit
better
better.
for
That was I
sure.
was like, we're on the right track now. All right.
Yeah, because that definitely felt,
Yeah.
like natural. Like I thought everything about
Because at
that
least
felt
they're
extremely
explaining it to somebody new, you
right.
know.
Yeah, exactly. I to go back to really quick to your opening scene, that's another thing I disagree with, your opening scene critique. Although,
Oh yeah. So sorry. So I would keep the opening scene. I would do all the things I just said. I would, keep those opening scenes, but change it, like I said. And then I would have the bus scene, and then the bus scene would happen. And then, boom, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And then we go back, and then it's a flashback to the beginning and narration. And we have like 10 years earlier or whatever the hell. And you still have
hmm,
the pendant thing. Like you show his pendant, but then like when he's young, it's reverse. You know what I mean? Because you see his pendant when he's young. So you recognize that that's the same person when he's older. We do the reverse. You see him older and have the pendant versus once you've introduced him, opening credit, mid scene or cold open, then you do backstory and you still have that connection when you see the boy who's being told the story is wearing the necklace, and that's Shang-Chi. That's what I would do. That's what I
Mm,
would propose in the meeting if they asked me to be there.
it would have felt
I
very
would go, Justin, listen, I got some notes. I read the script and I got notes.
would have felt very Tarantino. But Tarantino's inspired by Asian
I was
filmmaking
like, do you
too,
mean
so
one of the greatest filmmakers of all time,
oh,
Quentin Tarantino?
I'm not dissing it. I was thinking about it.
Academy
I
Award
wasn't
nominee
shitting on it.
multiple time, Twin Quentin Tarantino. I was gonna be
No,
like, my first instinct was like, thank you.
no, I wasn't shitting on it. I was just thinking about it, like
Yeah.
how that would play,
Mhm.
so I can comment on it. I mean,
But I like that more. That would have been
really,
more. I would have been gripped really from the beginning. That would have made me be like, I would have had that.
I mean, when I saw the opening scene, and I'll just go from my thoughts when I was watching it.
Mhm.
I'll just go based on that. When I saw it, it was like, this feels like real Asian cinema. So I didn't necessarily have a problem with it. Like I was like
And to be fair, I
appreciative
have
of that.
not I have not seen a lot of Asian cinema, so I'm
Yeah,
not familiar with the genre.
yeah. Um, maybe that's part of it too. No offense. Like I'm just thinking. Like
I don't know.
no, I'm just saying.
I feel
Like
like a lot of my problems with the script are still will still probably be there. But again, I don't know.
yeah,
I haven't seen the movies, so
yeah. Well, I
I don't
mean,
know.
I just feel like that was like it was letting me know that like I'm in good hands, and this is like it's by the way, I don't know, because like I almost feel like let me try to give a good like example here. Um I'm not saying that your idea wouldn't have worked either. I guess it's one of those things I would have to see. Like it had to be tangible for me to like be
Yeah.
able to tell you or not. I don't know. I'd have to
And
see it.
again, I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not a
No.
director. I'm just a person who watches things.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if I was like the producer on the movie and you pitched that to me, like I'd say try it out.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? If you were like the
Yeah.
director, I was the producer, I'd say try it out. Let's see how it goes.
Be like, let me do a cut.
Let's test it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely say
Yeah.
test it because I don't think it's necessarily
Mhm.
the worst idea in the world. So I'm
Yeah.
not trying to shit on your idea. I'm trying to
No,
think
yeah.
though back to I'm trying to give a really great example here. Like okay, this is probably the best example I can give because what it kind of reminds me of as far as like just the structure of it, not exactly the same, so don't get me wrong, it's definitely not
Mhm.
exactly the same. It's not apples to apples, but this is just a good example I can come up with because you're showing something from the past first, and this is what I'm basing that off of.
Mhm.
It's like Jaws is the best example I can come up with. It's like
Mhm.
the beginning when the girl and her boyfriend go in the water and she gets killed by the shark.
The cold open, right?
Right. So to me, it's like if you took that and put it in later. Like to me, it's like it would be like a
Mm.
really interesting technique, but it's Jaws is so perfect the way it is. So it's like, what's the difference in a way? It's kind
Yeah.
of what
And
I'm
I
thinking
think the
about.
difference there for me is that I think that cold open of Jaws, I think really in for me, yeah, it really it informs the rest of the movie. And that's the reason why it's the cold open. Because again, a lot of the times in novels and things, when there's like a preface or an introduction or something like that, or a cold open to a movie or a TV show, for me, it's I think the best writers sometimes that cold open tends to be like a microcosm for the rest of the movie or the rest of the thing. Like you can know a lot about it by just watching that cold open. Like it has a lot, it should be heavy with like metaphor that you don't understand at the beginning, but it's still cool. And then after you watch it and you watch it again, you watch that first scene and you're like, holy shit, that was the whole freaking thing. And I think though that if you were to do it my version, I think that works out a little bit better because it's about Shang-Chi and you would end with the bus scene after getting attacked and having Katie say like who the hell are you? I think that's how that scene ends.
Again, yeah, go
And I
back.
think that's incredible. And having these guys, you can have like the guys coming after him say something like he's coming for you or he knows where you are, something like that. And you'd be like, oh, who the fuck? Who are you talking about?
Yeah,
And by ending with Katie being like, who the hell are you? I mean, that's the rest of the movie. That's the rest of the movie is Shang-Chi trying to figure out who he is. So I think again, that scene could work as a microcosm for the rest of the movie.
I think
Not that I mean the beginning does too. At the beginning though was in the actual movie is just more of a backstory type of thing. it's his legit origins, like legit, like how his parents got together and made him, you know what I mean, versus his internal actual character journey, which is who is he, what does he stand for, who is he about, versus the beginning of the movie then suggests it's something about like, is the Mandarin Tony Leon Mandarin gonna be able to get world power or not? You know what I mean? If you're just judging it based off of the first scene.
Right. I would
But
say
again, that could work. It's very art is very, it depends on, there's a bajillion X factors, depends on character, plot, content, form, everything.
right, like even
But I think
you.
that could have worked. I would have used that as an argument for my for my version, that
Yeah,
it informs the rest of the movie
and
by ending the cold open that way.
it's fine to think that for sure because like
Yeah.
as far as we know he did try it that way and he just didn't like it. You don't know,
Maybe, yeah,
right? Like
maybe it
that's
sucked. That's true.
you never know sometimes, right? Like some things just sound better on the surface and like listening to you say it doesn't sound awful because like I'm listening to it and I'm like it doesn't sound like a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they tried it and it didn't work. Maybe they tried it and they just thought it didn't work and maybe it just would have worked
Yeah.
better anyway for the audience. Who knows? You just never know. That's the struggle with making
Mm-hmm.
a movie in the first place. Like let's not undermine how hard that is to do in the first place,
Oh my
but
god. Yeah.
you know the thing that I will say, where I will give just a slight pushback, at least based on my experience with the opening scene, is this. And going back to my Jaws example, the one thing about the Jaws cold open is that like it creates a lot of suspense, so it grabs you that way, and
Mm-hmm.
like so that's just going to play a
Right.
lot better in that movie for a lot more people, so I get that. But going back to this opening, what I think works about it, and this is where I would give a little pushback on your thing, is the fact, much like the Jaws cold open did, it sets the tone for the entire film. Because I think you did talk to me about this off camera a little bit, and we'll get into it here later. You were talking about the fact that because they do flash back and forth quite a bit in this movie, between like young Shang and then old Shang, so you get a lot of that going on, and so we're kind of like we're going into, I don't want to say it like in a racist way, but we go into Asian world quite a bit here, like back and
Or
forth,
his backstory,
right,
his
back and
childhood and
forth.
adulthood
We are
is
back and
how I
forth a
would put
lot,
it.
right? So
I thought about his childhood. One movie, one half of the movie is his child, the other half is his
sure.
journey to a full adulthood.
So you get
Yeah.
this scene in the beginning that I felt like set the tone for both of those, because you were saying like you felt like those two stories kind of didn't go together, like you kind of had two
Yeah.
movies and they didn't go together. I think they
Mm-hmm.
do work because the movie opened the way it did, because it sets the tone. I feel like if I didn't have it there, it wouldn't have set the tone for the best of both worlds to me, and
Mm-hmm.
then that way I kind of know where we're going. I'd like, and then when I was watching the opening scene again, the other thing that was crossing my mind is like, this is awesome, this is like what I want, this is a good tone for me, this is where I want to be. So it sets the tone entirely for me, so that's why I would say, if it was me, and again I would have to see it played both ways, but if it's me
Mm-hmm.
making the choice, I can see why it's in the very beginning, because it sets the tone, like it just does, and that way, like when you do flash back and forth, it's not as jarring later for me,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like it told you right from the beginning this is what you're getting into for the tone. Um, could there maybe had been something in the beginning that was a little bit more like Jaws again, captivating in terms of suspense? Yeah, for some people that probably would have worked better. For me, I didn't really care. I thought it was just all really, it was just a beautifully shot scene, and it was just done really well, and it set the tone. So I don't know. I didn't really have those vibes. So that's right.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got like 20, 30 minutes left, and we only got through the first scene. So
Well,
feeling
yeah.
pretty good.
Oh, I mean, yeah. The I
Where
mean,
else do you want to go?
well, yeah. The next place I would go to is this is
We
something
talk about most of the actors. Most of the actors we talked
we've gotten
about,
through.
cinematography, direction, script. We've talked pretty much about.
Yeah, I think we should just go through scenes at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
because like I think the next place I'd like to go is probably the cage fighting scene.
Cage fight. Yeah.
Because I think there's like, because this leads into a whole bunch of stuff, just based on
Mm-hmm.
that. This is really where a lot of the stuff starts up. And it's a good scene. Like I
It was a
felt
pretty good
like
scene.
I thought it
It
was
was funny.
taken. Yeah, it was fun and it
That
was
one,
funny.
that scene had really good pacing and knew what it was doing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? There
yeah,
felt like there's a lot of control, the director control in that scene.
yeah. I want to point out too, which I dug a lot. This was really funny to me. This is one of my biggest laughs in the movie. Was I like your pants? That was one of the biggest laughs from the
Oh
movie. That was a
yeah.
really funny line.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm so sorry to like I may or may not burst a bubble, but here's the thing.
oh god,
So I will not go too deep in this because this will go this on a whole freaking thing.
bigger discussion, right?
But bigger discussions to be had later times. However, I do feel like this film does satisfy the male gaze a lot more than it satisfies the female gaze. That's how I'll put it. And cause I was trying to think, I was like, does this movie pass the Bechdel test? I'm not 100%. And again, not just because a movie passes the Bechdel test does not mean that that is a feminist, incredible, uh, a female gaze movie. Just because it doesn't mean that it's a male gaze sexist pig fest. You know what I mean? But I was thinking about it and I was like, I don't know if it does. And then I was like, I don't know, does that scene count where she complimented her pants? That's the only time I can think of when like the main female characters had a conversation not about Shang-Chi. Because I think every other conversation's about him.
Mm.
And that doesn't count. But they do say I like your pants. It was funny though. I did like it, but then later upon reflection, I was like, wait, is that the only thing that may pass the Bechdel test? Not 100% sure. Marvel is historically bad about passing the Bechdel test though, so
Mm-hmm.
not a huge deal. That like just you bringing that up reminded me of that.
Yeah, but like, can I don't want to start a thing again. I don't want to get into it.
Absolutely.
I just want to ask and get an answer so that way I understand it.
Yes.
Okay. Because like I understand. Because let me preface the question too, so you don't think I'm like saying it to be
Yes.
an asshole. Because I'm
Okay.
really not. That's not what I mean here.
Yeah.
So first of all, like, because I understand like the push to have more films in the female gaze, like 110%. Like, I think that that's something that needs to be done, and I tend to appreciate things a lot when they're in the female gaze, and sometimes a lot more. Personally, as a human being, and you,
Usually better
well,
in
you
film. I've made
true.
strong arguments why in film particularly the female gaze is usually better, preferred.
I agree.
Some
I'm
of the best films by men, some of the best scenes are could be debated are female gazy.
I agree. Not every
Mhm.
time, but a lot of the time, and probably
Yes.
90% of it. You know, like I tend to,
Mhm.
I really do tend to enjoy movies that are through the female gaze. I think as long as you're not like, making her nude every 5 minutes, having like a female character leading a horror film is a really good concept. I think that horror kind of took that on before a lot of other things, like making, their main characters female characters. Good horror. I'm not talking about like cheesy ones where the girl had to get naked all the time. That's not what I'm talking about. And she's left running down the street
Yeah.
in her underwear every time at the end. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm talking about like horror movies
Mhm.
in general. Anyway,
Right.
my point is, like Ready or Not, that's a good example. I think that's a female guy's horror film of recent
Yes.
years that was really
And
good.
again, it's
Yeah,
also all determined. There's a big X factor in talking about these things about because the big thing is, like visibility is not the same thing as representation. Like just because your lead is a female,
yeah,
that does not mean that it is in the female
right,
gaze or an accurate representation of femininity or the female mind. You know what I mean? So
right.
visibility and representation are not the same thing. So it gets, you know what I mean? So it gets hard sometimes to
Yes,
be like, well, there were all these great female characters in horror films. And I'm like, but what did they do?
yeah,
What did they? But there are some great ones. Don't get me wrong. Horror is one of the pioneers in having great, phenomenal, strong female characters that when you ask people like, well, what did they do? What are they about? What do you like about them other than they're pretty or they're funny or something? And the horror movies was really great. Like people usually like have answers, and I'm like, oh, okay, so they were a real fleshed out character, and they weren't
truly,
a
yeah,
stereotype, just a person, not a woman, but a person, a
right,
character. You
100%.
know what I mean? Which that's the big thing for me. And
Yeah,
it's the big thing we have to remember is visibility is not representation, and all depends on how she is portrayed, how she is written.
right. On
Yeah.
that point,
To continue.
on
Yes.
that point though too, I'll jump off. I think that the Aquafina character was a character. Like I really felt that way when I was watching it. Like I said, I mean, sure, granted, a lot of her interests are Shang's interests, but that's because again they've been best friends for 10 years. So I think that's another reason that was important to throw out, because you got to understand, like, to me she's like his distraction, because she grounds him in that way, to where he's like he's trying
Mm-hmm.
to get away from that old life, so she's like the distraction. That's who Katie is, but in a
Yeah.
good way, like a friend, like he cares about her, but like
Yes.
she's what grounds him. She's his anchor in this world, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's why I love Katie so much as a character. But anyway, my initial question was this, because and that, like I said, I already prefaced, I like things in the female
Yeah.
gaze, everybody who's listening and everything, and Sammy knows this. I don't have to explain it to her. She knows I like movies that are done in the female gaze, and they're great most of the time. But
We've talked about it. Yes.
movie, this in particular, is Shang-Chi. Don't
Mm-hmm.
answer yet, because I know you're trying to jump the gun. Don't answer, because I like, let me word it right, because this movie
Okay.
is Shang-Chi, right? um so for me, I don't I would expect, personally at least, for this movie to be done in the male gaze, especially you look at it like with a male director too on top of that. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question to you is like, is it seems like anyway that you point that out as if it were a flaw. For me, I don't think that it is, because we do have a male lead in this one in particular. Not that every male lead movie has to be through the male gaze, but not it. The way I look at it is not everything has to be through the female gaze either. Not everything anyway. So I guess my question for you is, when you point that out as like it seems like a flaw, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here in a minute. Is that a personal thing, or is that more or less like, did you actually really expect this to be in the female gaze? I'm not asking that to be a jerk. I'm asking so what you're on to say. So
Right.
yeah,
So yeah. So
continue.
I know what you're. Yes. So I'm trying to think. Give me a minute to think. I know what I want. I know what I'm thinking, but I gotta say it.
Maybe even a
So
better way to put it too
the
is like, I mean,
yes.
you actually, I'm not asking this to be mean, but like, do you actually like things in the male gaze too? Because like, I
No,
think
yeah, I do.
I think
Yeah.
it's unrealistic for me anyway to ask for everything to be in the female gaze. But anyway, you
So
say your
here's the
answer.
thing.
You had a
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
So here is the thing. The thing about the male gaze in particular is that most, if not all film, for most, again, if not all of history, that the last decade or so that cinema has been around, has been presented through the male gaze. There was a
Yes.
big thing in like before like the 30s. A lot of filmmakers and writers and producers in Hollywood were actually women, and they were
Yeah.
making kind of a bit more scandalous type of
Yeah.
scandalous quote unquote films. So they put in the production code, which I mean, movie history people know all
Facts.
about,
Facts.
and they put in that production code. And the thing about the production code is that it instilled a lot of masculine ideas about what is appropriate and what we can see and what we want to see. And so because of that, we had a golden era of Hollywood through the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s
True.
that was filtered and brought on the foundation of the male gaze, essentially, of what will
Yeah.
satisfy men. You know what I mean? So
Which, yeah.
there's so that's our base, that's our foundation.
Which again,
And in the 70s and
yeah.
80s, I feel like it got a lot of male directors tried to flip it on its head and think about it in different ways. And then 90s, 2000s, a lot more prominent female directors and stuff came into fame and everything. And,
Yeah.
2000s, we got our first female director winning the Oscar.
Yeah.
So why it's so important to me is that it is so deeply rooted in all of cinema that I feel like if I'm not aware of it, it's a discredit kind of to history to not be aware that that's the foundation that all of Hollywood cinema works from. But again, that being said,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that I expected this movie to be from in the female gaze,
Right.
because here's the other thing about the gazes is that the male gaze is the kind of Cliff Notes way to describe it to somebody is it's about how what satisfies men stereotypically, which is is
Okay.
visual, is mainly visual. What do they look like? What can we see? What is happening visually in front of me? I will men usually take as truth and as 100%, and there's not a much gray area because what I'm seeing is true. That's a lot of that. That's why we talk so much about like women getting naked and stuff, because it's a visual cue that satisfies the pleasures and desires of men. Now, the female gaze, women are not so easily visually stimulated, but we are stimulated by emotions and feelings and thoughts and things that people may not be saying, but they're thinking, like small
Okay.
touches, small glances, um, dialogue that has hidden meaning underneath it, kind of inside jokes that only people get. The somebody looking at somebody only a certain way when they look at that one person, things like that. That's all a female gaze thing, because to satisfy the desires of women you have to look there, but to satisfy the desires of men you have to look visually. So it's not that I thought it would be in the female gaze, but because I understand that, and I understand, you know what I mean, that it's that kind of thing. And again, not to say that this movie is like, because again, some people take that as like, oh, boys only like visual and they are dum dums and can't use brain, and I'm like, that's not what I fucking mean.
Well,
That
that's
just
why I
means
think
that
it's important
you
to
are
explain.
easily, women are easily, the thing is like, this is a little
Yeah.
TMI. If you're under 18, don't listen to me. But the truth of the matter is, when young men want to be sexually stimulated when they're younger, they will watch porn. That is what they will go
Mm-hmm.
to. They will visually watch porn. What do women do? Women turn to things like romance novels and, you know, like fan fiction and stuff, and romance movies, because that is where we're getting, that's how we are immediately stimulated and satisfied. But hold on,
Okay.
one more thing. So, but the thing that I say that bothered me about the male gazeness of Shang-Chi is that I feel like every woman not only is only concerned and only really talks about the man in the movie Shang-Chi, but the fact that they are all kind of stereotypes to me.
Mm.
Like, Katie is just kind of the cool best friend, and that's it. That's like, she starts as the cool best friend and she ends as the cool best friend. And that's not a person to me, that's a stereotype. And that's a very easy stereotype for a lot of men to see and visually cue, like, oh, that's his best friend. Cool, done, there and done. Because that satisfies men very easily. For me, as like a woman and a lot of women, I'm like, oh, well, no, tell me more about their friendship. Like, what happened? I want to know the insides. I want to know how you feel about each other. I want to know what's going on. I'm like the grandma. I'm like,
Oh,
when are you
okay.
two getting married? Let me know. You know what I'm saying? And so that did kind of bother me in that. Again, nothing the way that it's all, this is all the way that it's written. All of this stuff is in the script. That's where this starts. It starts in the language and the content of the script and what the character is doing and saying, which is why I have a problem with the script. I also, the mom, man, their freaking mom was such a Madonna, Mother Mary, holy figure that it ticked me off a little bit. I'm not going to lie. That because, again, the Mother Mary perfect mother is not a real woman. There has never been a real woman who has been the Mother Mary, Madonna, perfect version of a mother. Every mother you've ever known has just been a real person. So it's frustrating to me to like watch this portrayal of a mother as she was just perfect and she gave us wisdom all the time. And then she died and now we're sad about it. And that's a motivation for all of the men to cause chaos and shit. I don't like that. And all of those things are male gaze ideology, because the female gaze wouldn't have done that. And stereotypically, the female gaze would have driven a lot deeper into the complexities of the mother and son relationship, and the wife husband relationship would have shown more dates with them. You know what I mean? Would have shown more of them falling in love, would have shown more conversation, would have shown more of him growing up and them interacting and her feeling hurt by his leaving and all of that. That's more of a female gaze thing, which I more prefer. Versus in this movie, it's kind of, it's over a montage and it's a narration and they kind of look at each other once and they're like, and then we fell in love. That to me is a man's version of what this story was, which is why I say it's the male gaze. Does all of that make sense? Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I know that was a lot, but it is genuinely very, very important to me as a woman who is such a big fan of cinema. These things are very, very important to me.
All right. Are you good to go for like another 20 minutes here? By the way, just let's we
Huh? I know.
yeah.
We got like
Um
10 minutes. Yeah.
no, I hear you. Um I'll say this.
And again, I will say just real quick, and it's not, this isn't to say that you're not capable of understanding this or that there's like a block you have or something, but it is just true that the experience that I've lived, I'm more aware of these type of things, and it's been thrown in my face a lot more than I feel like the world has thrown it in your face. Do you know what I
mhm.
mean? Just by the nature of who we are as people.
And that's
Does that make sense? You know
no,
what I'm
it's
saying?
understandable.
Yeah.
Um
So I've just been highly aware of this for longer and more because the universe forced me to.
yeah, you've been
You know what
more
I mean?
exposed to it.
Yeah.
So I get where you're
Yes.
coming from and I understand.
And
That's
more
what
angry about it because
that's
again,
well
it's been
that's
such and so
that
important to me for so
I
long.
think it was important to explain because I think that there would be just like a lot of people that were watching this, so like the second you said that they would give you a lot of shit,
A
so
lot of
like
people do
that's
that,
why I
right?
think that it was important for you to explain yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that it goes
And
back
I'm
to a
glad to.
personal
Yeah. If
thing.
anybody in the comments has questions about male gaze, female
Yeah.
gaze, point of view in cinema,
uh,
gender in cinema, and all of that stereotypes, leave them in the comments. Let me
yeah,
know. I'll check them.
well, yeah, because obviously I didn't see it that way in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
so it was just important to me that even though I'm probably never gonna understand it the way you did, that you at least add
You get where
explanation.
I'm coming from a little bit
Well,
though,
rather, yeah,
now
well,
though,
rather
right?
than me
Yeah.
just like shitting all over your critique, it would have just been better for me to just
Yeah.
hear you out and like listen to you. We had a conversation off
And
camera,
thank
folks,
you.
that got
Yeah.
very heated, and I felt bad about it. And I want to make sure that
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're on the same page to a degree. But
Yes.
I was also 2-1 in that one, just
To
so
be fair,
everyone
yes.
knows. So that wasn't fair. But either way, no, thank you for sharing that, and I honestly wanted to know because I don't think a lot of people are going to see it the way you do, and I'm going to be very honest about
Mhm.
that. Like I don't think
No, it's okay.
I'm pretty sure most people are going to watch that and not see it that way. Um, I don't think the
And
intention.
again, that's because most cinema for most of history since at least the 30s
Yeah,
that's been the norm. So
yeah,
it's been, we have been uh I don't want to say groomed, but we've been groomed a little bit to not notice it. So it doesn't, you know what I
yeah.
mean? That doesn't mean you're a bad person or I think you're dumb or
No,
whatever because you don't see it. It just means like I understand why you don't see it that way
I.
because that just means that you are
Mm-hmm.
participating in what they're telling you, which is makes you a regular human being.
Sure,
Like all of us are regular human beings, you know?
sure. I think that
Yeah.
I'll be honest
So I
with
don't want to
you.
sound like that's insulting that I like, you know what I mean?
No,
I want to
no.
be like, oh, that's because you don't get it, you're not thinking about it hard enough. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, that's fine that you don't see it that way.
No, it's
But
like
you know,
I see
yeah.
what you're saying too. That's the thing, because like I see what you're saying, and like I hear everything you're saying about it, and I
Mm-hmm.
understand how it can come off that way too. 100%. That just wasn't my experience with it, I suppose, and nor would it be. Because
Mm-hmm.
like you said, we're just two different people. We've had two different experiences, so why would
Yeah.
it be? But on the same
Mm-hmm.
hand, because a lot of the times, like you and I have talked about movies so much at this point that a lot of the times you've pointed out things that like that was definitely like sexist and problematic, and like I definitely look at it and
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, definitely, I see exactly where you're coming from, and it's like,
Feminism, I saw a TikTok
yeah,
recently. Yeah. I saw a TikTok recently that said feminism and university are the two worst things that ever happened to me as a fan of movies. And I couldn't agree more.
yeah,
It's a blessing and a curse to be this deep in college and feminism because like I can't just blindly watch something anymore.
yeah,
That's dead for me.
yeah,
Those two institutions ruined it.
yeah,
I can't, I'm like, I'm out of the point of no return. I can never not think about it. And
yeah.
it sucks.
I,
But you know what? I like thinking about it, but it sucks.
yeah. I will
Yeah.
say that this though, I want to say this, and then we'll go to Trevor, and then the post credit scenes. So, and we'll wrap up.
Yes. Oh my God. We haven't even talked about, oh my God,
Yeah,
Ben Kingsley. Jesus
yeah.
Christ.
But the last point I want to make on your thing, is I'm sorry that was the experience you had with that. First of all, secondly, I think that I don't think personally, while I see what you're saying, I hear what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, and I understand why it came off that way to you. I don't think that was the intention of the people behind this movie were to be problematic. I really don't. When I look at
Oh
it, I
yeah,
don't
nobody
think that.
intends to be problematic. Yeah.
I don't like. I think
I
that
don't think so, at
I
least.
think there are
Yeah.
times when it's been taken too far, and like it's definitely problematic, and it's like, man, they could have really eased up on that particular thing, right? But I think in this genuine general case, um, like by the way, like this is a really good example. Like I love Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is problematic as hell, though. Like let's be honest, like it is. Like I love the
Yeah.
show, but it's problematic. It's a great fucking show,
Hmm.
problematic as hell, even though they have great female characters in there
Yep.
too on top of that, but they do a lot of things that are for the male gaze and are very problematic. 100% understandable. I just love it. I just happen to love it, because I recognize they at least give the females some characters. I mean, they really do. They build their females well in that
Hmm.
show, as problematic as it may come off from time to time.
Yeah.
Either way, my point is like here, I just don't think it was up that alley of like wanting to be problematic or wanting to come off sexist or anything like that. I
No,
don't
yeah.
think that was the intention. I think that they really wanted to make good female characters. I do. I genuinely do. I think that they wanted Katie to be likable, and the consensus has been, outside of you, and again, we understand that now, the consensus has been
Hmm.
that Katie is a very good female character for most people.
Hmm.
I
And I like where they're going with the sister too. I like how it
mhm.
ended with the sister kind of, you don't really know if she's going to be a good or a bad leader or not. I That's interesting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That gave her some umph, some, pizzazz that I was waiting for.
Yeah,
The sister was a bit better. The sister also was kind of
I
felt
did
very
like her.
flat to me as well, but she was all right.
I did like her.
Wasn't a main
I
concern.
did like her, but I
Yeah.
want to know more about her. That's the thing with her.
Mhm.
I definitely have
But
like a
I
lot of
we definitely
curiosity,
will.
and we will. But
She's the leader of the 10 rings now, 100 freaking
I
percent. We're
I
going to hear more about her.
I say like to me the reason though, this is where I'll get to with your overall thing though. With that, I think, and this is a theory of mine, and I think it's got to happen. I think that it's refreshing to me. I said this at the beginning, like it's refreshing to me that they're very platonic. You know what I mean? But I also think that we
Mhm.
had a lot of seeds planted here to build it into something. I think that it is
Oh,
going
a
to be
thousand
romantic.
percent. That hug at the end, are you kidding me? That was a
Yeah,
romantic hug if I've ever seen one.
and I take it like if you're watching, and I'm being serious, like based on the way you were feeling about Katie here, I feel like if you're watching Spider-Man Far From Home and you're looking at Zendaya's character in that, or not Far From Home, sorry, Homecoming, you look at Zendaya's character
Mhm.
and they're same thing. I think that she's
A little bit,
built
yeah. Because
right.
the thing is, do you remember there was I heard once that they filmed a cut scene with Zendaya's MJ where like after the big field trip, they're all getting picked up
Right.
after the big like attack or whatever that they all went through. Um, and there was supposed to be a scene where MJ's like mom doesn't show up to pick her up. And Peter's just like sitting there feeling really sad. And so he asked Aunt May to give her a
Yeah.
ride home. And there's a really sweet scene. I'm
Yeah, I
like,
heard
if
about
you
that.
would have just added that one scene to that movie, you
Right.
would have made her like, you would have added that
That extra
that we
yeah.
need to make her a person, to feel
Yeah.
like she's a person, not just
Yeah.
a stereotype character.
Yeah.
But no, you're not wrong. She is kind of
Right.
just like weird, quirky girl. I had no idea what to make of
That's
her
what
in
I'm
the
me
first in
either,
Spider-Man
exactly. So I
Homecoming,
feel
too,
like
to
it
be
would have been the
honest.
same thing.
I
Granted,
liked her. I was like,
yeah.
she's MJ, so I feel like we could be going somewhere cool, but I don't know what to make of
Yeah.
her.
Granted, I
Like a
mean,
little bit kind of Aquafina right now. I'm like, I
right,
could see the relationship romantically building, but right now I'm like, I kind of don't know
right. So
what to make of you in this
I just
universe.
personally think like if you look at it from the angle that I think you will be satisfied more with her as she
Mhm.
builds, and that's like I look at
Yeah.
Zendaya, you get to Far From Home, it's like, oh my god, this is a character. That's what's going to happen with
Yes.
Katie. I feel like, granted, I
I
think
hope so.
Katie
Yeah.
got a lot more than Zendaya did in Homecoming, but still, like a lot more
Mhm.
screen time. That's for damn sure. But still,
I
um,
can't remember exactly. Maybe
Zendaya's
about
not in
yeah.
Homecoming actually all that
Let me
much.
see.
Like as
Yeah.
opposed to
No,
like
I feel like Katie probably has more actually. Yeah.
Katie's like to me like definitely a counterpart to Shang-Chi. one character to me doesn't work without the other, honestly, in my opinion, when watching this.
No, yeah, they do. They complement each other very, very
Yeah.
well and complete each other in that, you know,
Right, and same
I
for
agree on
Peter and
that.
MJ now, but in the first, yeah,
Right.
it's like,
Yes.
yeah, but I think that's
It's
the
like they
thing though.
complete each other.
Yeah, I say have faith in
Yeah.
this, honestly, Sammy. Like based on your thing, this is what I'd say. Have faith in this. I think it's actually
Mhm.
gonna. I think it's this way right now for a reason.
Yeah.
Have faith in it. I think it is gonna build somewhere.
Oh,
That'd be my thing. But anyway,
fair.
this fight scene, the cage fight scene, leads to what I also thought was absolutely
Yes.
stunning, which was the building fight when they're fighting outside on the buildings. Um,
That's pretty cool.
which I loved. That was also another great, well, maybe not as well as the bus scene, but still pretty close, I thought, like in terms of
Hmm.
how it was shot and everything. We had Shang doing all that, but and then we get into let's talk about Trevor here because I know you had a lot of
Yes.
problems on this front, and we'll try to make this brief. But like on the same hand, because you're not the only one feeling this way about Trevor, I'll give my take and then I'll let you go on your
Really
rant.
good.
I'll let you go on your rant. No, you're not, because there's a lot of people that really enjoyed this that weren't happy with Trevor, and I knew that was going to be the case, by the way, because a lot of people didn't like him in Iron Man 3, and you know how people are. It's like once they don't like somebody, you can't change their mind sometimes.
You know who I did love though?
Who?
I love
Morris?
that freaking, what was his name? Morris? The freaking no face little furry thing. Oh my
Great.
fucking God. That was the cutest thing I'd ever seen in my life. That was for the male gaze. That they knew what they were doing when they made that thing super cute.
Yeah.
They fucking knew.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I bought into it.
Yeah.
It was so cute when he was like at the very end when he's like, I'm not dead. I'm just acting.
Yeah.
Join. And then he does,
It's
and
the
Morris
best.
joins
Yeah,
and
it's
like
hilarious.
flips on his back. I literally went like, oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, hilarious.
I love him. Anyway, yeah, loved him.
And so I'll go through my experience with Trevor too. And by the way, so because like I did not like this character in Iron Man 3. Nothing to do with Sir Ben Kingsley. I was just like, that's the Mandarin, that's what you're doing, which it was a really, like, to Shane Black's credit, it was a really good diversion of expectation. But I know because of how important the Mandarin is to people from China, like I knew when I watched that, I was like, people are gonna be pissed, and I kind of am too, because it's like that was a really important moment for.
I feel like yeah, they should be very validated in this movie. I think if you hated Ben Kingsley's Mandarin for a lot of cultural reasons and stuff, then I'm like, you would find this very satisfying, I think, because they really do treat him like the butt of the joke.
Yeah, I would hope
you know
so.
what I mean?
And a lot of people
like they're like, he does not, he appropriated our culture and he's an asshole.
Yeah.
That's his vibe.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It is. I thought this was very self-aware, and that's one of the things I liked about it, because when he first showed up, I went,
we talked about that.
Oh, you know, because like I was like, because of Kevin Feige's when he was at Investors Day last year, he made this big push about, you'll be seeing the real Mandarin, we're gonna push the real Mandarin, and then they pulled this, and I'm like, oh no, when I saw him in this movie, even though I was surprised to see him, I actually really was surprised. And then I thought about it a little bit.
Yeah, you saw it before, because I wasn't surprised because we talked about this on the regular podcast, but there was that Disney Plus Marvel one shot.
Right.
So I at least had a little bit of warning, but you had no fucking idea.
I had no idea.
I had a little bit of warning.
Yeah, no hint of it. But then I thought about it for a little bit, and especially as he was talking and explaining himself and explaining why he was there, I said, this makes sense. He has a direct tie to the Mandarin. It would make sense that he's going to get them there, but just don't play it where it's not self-aware, and it played it very self-aware.
And
I thought the dialogue was hilarious.
It gives closure to that as well.
True. And it improves.
I thought it gave great closure to that performance.
Improves upon a past mistake. Too. That's what I liked about it. It was like, oh, it does make it feel more like they were planting a seed earlier. That's all they were trying to do, and it doesn't make Iron Man 3 suddenly a masterpiece, but it helps. Anyway, so we're enhanced here with this one, and now with this, and like I thought the dialogue was great. He's explaining a lot of things, and I actually thought that really worked because it was meshed with a lot of great comedy, a lot of great comedic lines. Like I thought he was so funny. I do go to that scene that you were talking about too, Sammy. Joined me. That was awesome.
I did laugh. But I laughed because Morris joined him. That's what I loved about that.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, but your thoughts on Trevor? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mentioned before I did have a little bit of warning because I did watch that Marvel one shot on Disney Plus that just randomly dropped and I had no freaking clue what it was. So I did, I wasn't confused when he popped up. But again, it was kind of whatever. I feel like he was a little bit wasted. It felt to me like there was a conversation in the process of writing this movie, where they said, all right, guys, so are we going to atone for our sins with Ben Kingsley or aren't we? And they decided that they were, and that they had to throw him in here. And then they were like, well, we can't just throw him in here. We have to make him make sense of the plot. He has to be doing something, or else people aren't going to like it. And that's why they had him do all the things he did. Like nothing that he does felt like he necessitated doing it. Nothing he did felt like he was the one that needed to do that. It felt like anybody could have done that job. The only reason he's doing it is because he happens to be here. And
Mm-hmm.
the only reason he happens to be here is because a group of people were upset about his last movie. You know what I mean? And that to me is not a good enough reason for things to be happening in the current movie that I'm watching. So that was my issue with it.
Sure. I mean, like I said, I countered. I mean, I counteract that with I think it
But he
makes
was funny,
sense.
he was enjoyable. Ben Kingsley was killing it. He showed up that day and he killed it.
I thought it made sense. Again, I think that he has a direct tie to the Mandarin already. If you're going to use anybody there, I go
Mm,
back to like the Luke Skywalker thing in Mandalorian. I'll say this really quick, like just as an example,
mm.
because it was like a lot of people had a problem with that, and okay, but for
I was
me,
gonna say not. I wasn't a fan of that either.
deep fake aside, a lot of people had a problem with
Mm.
it, just him showing up. They wanted it to be somebody else. And I know you weren't. Yeah, so this is like a good example. To me, I go back to the same thing
Yeah,
though.
it checks out.
Sure, yeah, and like I go back to the same thing. It's like it makes sense because when you look at the canon, he's already searching for Jedi relics at the time. It made sense he'd be the one to show up. Maybe some people are gonna look at that
Mm.
as like, ah, God, they just had him there to have him there. But in my opinion, it's like it made sense when when you're looking into the timeline right now and where everybody's at. So I understood Trevor the same way I
That's fair.
understood
That's
Luke.
fair to say. Yeah.
And like so that's where I look at it. I thought it made sense. I didn't think it was just thrown in there to be thrown in there. But that's me. But we are
Hmm.
short on time, so let's keep moving. Going back to the third act really quick, Sammy, because so I'll set this up too.
Yes.
Because like I loved Katie's involvement. I guess it kind of goes back into your thing, like, oh, she's just there to be badass and to help Shang-Chi, but that's fine. So I understand maybe you weren't a big fan of
See,
that.
I thought the yeah,
Yeah.
because the reason why I didn't like that felt similarly to why I didn't really like Ben Kingsley's character was because it kind of felt like, well, we need Katie to be doing something right now. We can't
Okay.
just say that she can't just be hanging, she can't just be right next to him during this battle. So we have to have her be doing something else. And they were like, I don't know, have her, I don't know, learn archery real quick and then she can be the one to shoot the arrow at the end. I don't fucking know. Like that's how I feel like that went
Yeah,
down.
I don't
And that
know.
is
Like,
lazy writing,
I,
if you asking
the
me.
way I looked at it was like I didn't expect her to be involved in it at all, so I was just appreciative that she was because I was already a fan of the character. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
and so like for me, like I said, I just don't think that one works without the other in this. It's very.
It felt a little out of left field for me too.
Mm,
Like all of a sudden she's an archer, she's doing archery now. Like it would have been something if you
yeah.
had dropped hints before, if she had been interested in it.
Well,
She says something about like she loves the Hunger Games or some shit, like something. So that way when it happens, it makes sense that she would say, yeah, sure, I'll just learn archery real quick because where else? Why? Why archery? Why right now? Why these people? Why Katie?
well, I
All
think.
you should have the answers to all of those if you're writing getting paid
Mm,
thousands of dollars on a Marvel MCU
yeah.
movie.
Well, I mean, I
So,
looked at it as, and granted, it was out of left field, but that's kind of what I liked about it too, was the fact that
mm.
it surprised me so much. And, I think that for me, what
Maybe that's what they were going for.
I
Maybe they
think
wanted it
so
to be out
because
of
I
left
was
field.
surprised. It was one of those like, oh, moment, and then like a lot of people were going nuts about it too in the theater because,
Mm.
especially when she shot the arrow, like a lot of people just loved that. They were blown away. Like that was a
Right.
clap
Yeah.
moment in
Yeah,
the
that was
theater
cool.
for people because, and like the thing is like I've heard this criticism on it too is the thing about her archery in the movie, and this isn't I don't think the same criticism you have with it, Sammy. This
Hmm.
is a different thing about her archery, but I've heard this and I want to explain it to people because a lot of people are saying, how did she know how to shoot that bow so fast? honestly, shooting a bow doesn't take that long to learn. Like, I don't know if anybody knows this, but it doesn't take that long
And
to
like,
learn.
come on, it's the MCU, fam.
Yeah,
Like the least of my concerns. Because I kind of thought that too a little bit, to be honest. I was like, shit, bitch, that was real quick. You just became a master like that. But then I was like, you know what? This is a superhero
yeah.
movie. She spent all day with masters. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like it popped into my head and then immediately decided I don't give a shit about
Well,
it.
you can
That
learn
that one
that.
I let brush right
You
off.
can learn that
Because you
skill
can, you
in just
could.
within hours.
And they're
It's
masters and
right.
yeah,
It's doable to look.
it's
And
plausible.
it really does go back to like the Kurosawa like Asian cinema where it's like the people who
Mm,
are like the masters at not necessarily archery but like weaponry teach
mm-hmm.
we've seen the trope many times just teaching the people that aren't
Teaching
masters at it. It
novices,
happens all the
yeah.
time in Asian filmmaking. So
Mm-hmm.
I like that they carried that over, but I saw the influence there. But anyway, my point is like when she shoots that dragon you realize she's shooting a target that's like probably as big as like a big ass truck, you know, so it's not like
Mm-hmm.
it's a hard target to hit. She's not trying to, you
Yeah,
know, it's not Luke
that's
Skywalker
fair
trying
too.
to shoot, you know, the Death Star, you know, it's not that kind of a
Right.
shot. It's a big target, so
Yeah.
like it's doable. So
She could have hit anywhere, right?
I bought into it. But going back to the third
Mm-hmm.
act, the question I wanted
Right.
to ask you before we get into like all the post
Yes.
credit scenes and all that. Oh, and
Yes.
one more quick mention here. The other thing that I loved about this is the conversation that they both had together, like prior to the battle. Him and Katie, they had a really good conversation, and that really is what made me fall in love with Katie even more.
What
Is
did
like,
they what was that conversation about? I can't remember which conversation.
well, no, hold on. I was about to say he was telling her the name, but that was on the airplane. Prior.
Yes.
This was the one where they're talking about just they were talking about their friendship again. They were bringing it back up, and they were talking about like you know, basically they were just going over like how much it meant to her. That's
Right. Because they said
well,
right.
that's another reason I bought it so much that
Yeah.
she would get
Kate's ringing a
involved.
bell.
That's why
Yeah.
I bought it that she would get involved because they had that conversation prior, and to me, it was like
Mm,
that it's like it just shows you how much she actually cares about him. Again, it goes into your thing about the male getting you know, but all that. But like to me, it just helped me buy into the moment so much more. Anyway, but like I going into the
mm.
third act though, in general, this is the question I had for you. What outside of the Katie stuff and all that, like aside, like just talking Shang-Chi, the dual dragons, the 10 rings, and granted we don't know what the 10 rings are yet, and like I get that. So that aside too. Like the
Yeah.
10 rings, Tony Leung, Shang-Chi, the actual Mandarin, and the dual dragons. Like what didn't you like about this third act? Because I know you had problems with it in general. Right. I mean,
I mean, I guess I did like it. I did. Because I liked the battle. I liked the passing of the rings. That was a little cheesy, a little on the nose, but fine. It brushed right off. I got the one moment I did get like, it's about to go down, man, was when he did start doing the I don't know what else to call it, but the leg thing where he moves his leg back like that, the thing that his aunt and mother were showing him how to do. Um that kind of when he gets his like power up moment, I
mm-hmm.
love that. I
It's
thought that was
great,
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the CGI was fine. It was big monster fight. I mean, it was kind of, I guess it just wasn't anything special. It's not that I didn't like it, it's that it was just okay.
Yeah, I'll go
There's
back.
nothing that made me, there was that one moment that made me be like, ugh, and everything else, I was just like, okay, it's the last act of a movie. All right, cool. Oh,
Interesting.
cool. They did that thing.
Yeah,
Oh, cool. They did that thing. Oh, cool. They did that thing. Oh, it's over.
yeah, see, like
That's how I
when that
felt.
stuff played for me, it didn't go like that in my mind. To me, it was like, oh my god, they're doing this. Oh my god, they're doing that.
Oh my god, what the fuck's happening?
And
Yeah.
like, and that is also part of like what my audience was feeling too. So I almost feel like
Mhm.
that radiated off of them a bit too, because like
Yeah. I
every
was
time,
in a very, to be also fair, I was in a very, I could tell though, I literally told my mom afterwards, because I saw with my mom in a very small, like mall theater in the middle of nowhere. And I told her afterwards, I was like, it was a very tame crowd. There was maybe like 10 other people in there. This was on Sunday, like Sunday afternoon. And literally, I was like, I can already tell you where people freaked out. Like, I could annotate this movie
Mm-hmm.
and circle every moment that I could tell you an audience on like a 7 p.m. on the
Yeah.
Thursday night flipped their shit. Like, I was like, I've been doing this enough that I don't, you know what I mean? I was like, I don't need to be in that theater to know when people freaked out. I know when you freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of funny. I was like, I've been
Yeah.
around this block a couple of times,
Yeah.
kids.
Well, that was the thing. I mean, like, and I was in a packed
But it was still cool.
IMAX,
Yeah.
much like I
That
was
wasn't a bad
for,
thing. That was just like a
sure,
thing I noticed.
much like I was for like Endgame and Infinity War. I was in a packed IMAX. I think it was a Tuesday night in
Mm-hmm.
my case, but it was a press screening, so, but it was packed, and like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not kidding you, Sammy. It wasn't just like the way that Endgame was. I mean, I'm saying like when anything new happened, when Katie got involved, when the dragons got
That's
involved, like
wild.
when anything new happened, people just went insane. Like it, and it was so loud. I was like, I've never seen
Wow.
people go so insane at this frequency. You know what I mean? And so like it really, as far as
Yeah.
like chaotic Marvel experiences or
Huh.
theater experiences, this is the most I've ever seen people go nuts for something. And I was right there with it. So like it
Damn.
was like it's kind of like being at a
And it's
concert when
got the
everybody
highest,
else
it's
is
got like
going
a
nuts. You are
98 audience score on Rotten
right,
Tomatoes right now.
right. It's huge,
Yeah.
and like
So
that's
it's,
yeah, that it
yeah,
reflects off of what
I
I
believe
saw and
it.
heard. You know what I mean? I think, and that's what I was experiencing too.
Mm,
Every time something new happened, it didn't play as like, okay, this thing's happened. It was like, oh my god, this is happening. Oh my god, this is happening. Oh my, it
mm-hmm.
just kept building. It's like being at a
Yeah.
concert when everybody else is hyped. You got to get hyped too. It's like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how else to explain it,
Right.
and maybe that added
Right.
to my experience. I'm not gonna say it didn't,
Yeah.
but I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
And this
It did.
movie's gonna have
Yeah.
a
Because
special
it
place in
also
my heart
got
because of it.
a, yeah. Mm. What's the one? I think it's Cinema Score is the one. There's one of the rating systems that it judges. It takes a composite of like different audiences,
Cinema
but the
score,
question they ask the audiences is how much did it live up to your
cinema
expectations?
score. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I want to say it's Cinema Score is the one that does it, and it got an A. It got
Right.
a solid A.
Yeah.
So I was like, so obviously this is audiences are obsessed
Yeah. I
with
mean,
this one. This one's
again, I'm not
killing with
saying this to
audiences.
shit
So
on you. I'm
yeah,
saying like you really are in a small pocket with this because like
no, I believe it.
yeah, I mean, but the thing is like
Yeah.
like, and I'll say why I loved it one more time here, this third act, and then we'll get into the post
Mhm.
credit and wrap up and everything.
Yes.
So one more time, I mean, let me just say this because what it is for me, and this is something I think you and Cisco, when we were having a conversation off camera, you guys were misunderstanding me on, is like, as I kept saying, there was no fan service. I meant in the third act. That's what I was referring
Mm.
to specifically. This third
Okay.
act doesn't throw out the typical fan service. You know what I mean? Of I know you're in a
It's
different place with
right. It's
this.
climactic
It's
points
climactic,
where plot wise versus
right?
more fan based.
Exactly, and
That
I
makes
think
sense.
that
No, that makes more sense.
so the audiences understand it and you understand it, and like I know you're in a different place with this, and that's okay.
Right.
I'll accept that and move on. But
That does make a lot more sense though.
for me, that's what I was trying to say last night, but I kept getting interrupted. I couldn't explain myself, but it doesn't matter. It's a
We were heated. We had points.
different time,
Yeah.
everybody, and we're all here to we're more open to it now. But
Yeah.
listen, I mean, no, honestly, like I'm, I really do understand you're in a different place. I'm not just saying that to be nice. Like I genuinely am just accepting it, and it's fine. It's you, I do you. For me though, it's
I'm big on like agree to disagree, man. It does not matter.
yeah.
It is not worth it to fight over your opinion on a movie. You know what I
Well, I
mean?
want to make
Like
sure that you know that we're
agree
good
to
because, like, I
disagree.
don't want you to take what I'm about
Mm-hmm.
to say as an insult because I genuinely don't mean it this
Okay.
way. But maybe something to think about rather than an insult. Like that's all I'm just trying
Okay.
to make a point because I know there's other audience members like you, and there's other audience members like you that are worse about it and more gun ho about it than you are because you like a lot of original
Yeah.
shit at least, which a lot of audience members
Yeah.
can't. Anyway, so my point is like I
And again, it all depends on context too, you know what I
granted,
mean? Like
yeah,
fan service could be done really bad in a certain way, even if it's a character I
granted,
love or something, or if it's done in a really good way with a character I love, fuck yeah, I'm gonna get hyped for it.
yeah,
But again, if you put out an original story that I connect to and I think is a really beautiful and amazing work of art, but
yeah.
has zero fan service, I'm not gonna be like, fuck this movie doesn't have Iron Man. So
Right, right. True. Yeah.
I live in the middle. I
Right.
understand both points of
So
view 1,010%
that's
and
what I
could
mean.
argue for both of them.
That's what I mean. 100%. Don't take anything
Yeah.
I say here as an insult. And by the way, just so everybody knows, I was right there with you. On your left, I was clapping right there with y'all. Like I was
Yeah.
loving that shit too. I love Endgame. I love Infinity War. They're great movies. They're
Hmm.
guilty as charged. I love that shit too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
But
it
then
didn't get
something
me hyped.
like Booksmart, Midsummer,
Yeah.
Hereditary, something original comes out and I'm fucking there
Yeah.
though.
And like,
Same thing.
I don't want to like bring up, I don't want to, what was that term? Beat a dead horse or whatever. But like, I do kind of go back to the Scorsese thing where like, I do kind of look at those as roller coaster rides. This is kind of that too, but I look at it
Right.
as a more, at least it's showing me new things as far as like in this universe. You know what I mean? Like, this is kind of that
That
roller
makes
coaster
sense.
ride, but at least it's like showing me new things. Like, those are just set up to be that. This naturally got that reaction because of its, it was a natural reaction for everybody, I guess. So for me, um, the one thing I'll say though about that is you're going to gain 200 plus points when you do that. For me, that's just like automatically when you have something like that just naturally gains the reaction and just doesn't
Yeah.
put things into place to do that. It's naturally
Yeah.
going to gain a
And
lot
for
more
me,
points
it's
for
like
you.
it's not automatic. Yeah. And for me, it's like it's not automatically you have an original story, I'm gonna like it more. And it's not automatically if there's fan service, I'm gonna like it more. For me, it really depends on a lot of
A lot
things.
of
Like again, like the
factors, yeah.
script is the biggest problem for me. So you know what I mean? That there's a
Yeah.
everything that the script accumulates to, I'm gonna be like
Right.
meh because the whole time I've been like, I don't like this script.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
it's a big again context and specificity of
Yeah.
each particular text is very 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 for me especially very 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 important.
Yeah.
I take each thing as they come to me.
Script didn't work for
Nothing
you.
is end all be all or
Right.
yeah,
Script.
nothing is automatic, nothing is always one way. Like I look at each thing as it arrives to
Yeah.
me as it is.
Yeah, script didn't work for you. It worked for me and my
Mm-hmm,
theater apparently. So naturally, I'm gonna have that natural reaction to it.
mm-hmm.
That you weren't gonna have with us, and I'm sorry about that because I really wish you could have had that experience. But it's just not gonna work for you. It's all right. But for me, when I'm here anyway, my point was, and then we'll get to the post credit. I promise. My point was here is that I think um I think genuinely it's really like, and I know where you're at, Sammy, so I'm not insulting you, but like I think it's very problematic when audience members just, and clearly they're not doing that with us, so it's good, but like when audience members just look at things like that, just are trying to get that natural reaction from you, and they're looking at the originality of something like that, and that just doesn't have that kind of fan service, and they're like, well, Captain America wasn't there, so it's dumb. Iron Man didn't show up, so it's dumb. You know what I'm saying? So like, I hate that. I hate that, and that's something I've heard not about this film
But
in
that's not what
particular.
I'm saying though.
I know that's not you.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
that's
trying to.
really not what I'm
I'm trying to
saying.
keep
Yeah.
you out of this. This is, or sorry, you're
Okay.
over here. I'm trying to keep you out of this part of it because
Okay.
like I know this isn't you. I'm saying a lot of people. I'm talking about people like, I hate to call him out, Mark. He's a very good friend, but I'm telling you the truth. Like, it's dumb because so and so didn't show up. Where's Nick Cage? Where's Willem Dafoe? It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So like, I'm glad, I guess, that this hasn't necessarily been the reaction with this film in particular, but I'd be lying if I said I haven't heard it from some people on the internet already that are like, well, why didn't Thor show up? It's not fucking Thor. It's Shang-Chi. Well, why didn't Doctor Strange
Yeah.
show up? It's not Doctor Strange. It's Shang-Chi. You're not watching that movie. You know what I mean? That's what pisses me off, and I'm trying to get to.
Mhm.
I think it's extremely problematic, and we don't push things forward if we can't just get those thoughts out of our head. And because genuinely, that's not what film was made for. It's not made for you to have that. It's great if you do sometimes, like I said, Infinity War, Endgame. I was right there with you. Love those movies. But it's great if we get that, and like you said, Sammy, that was really well built to that moment as well in Infinity War and Endgame. Like they built that, so it
Yeah.
works so much better because of the 23 movies prior, and it's a wrap up to that. So naturally, you're gonna have that kind of thing. But I'm saying, like, I look at things Like, look at when the original Star Wars came out. You know what I mean? Like, look at that. It wasn't based on anything prior. You know what I'm saying? So like, that was just exciting because it was exciting, and I kind of felt the same way about
Yeah,
this.
yeah, for me, I kind of just don't give a shit about, again, other people. I'm like, if you hated this movie simply because Captain America was in it, then guess what? You don't have to watch the movie. That's fine. I'm not going to force you
I
to
know.
watch something that you don't want to watch, because I also don't want you to
Yeah.
force me to watch anything that I don't want to watch. You know what I
True,
mean?
but
So I'm kind of like, I understand that being a concern for you, but for me, I'm like, I could
well,
not care less if someone didn't like this movie simply
yeah.
because it didn't have fan service. I'm like, that's fucking fine. It does lead into a higher conversation though, which is true, that a lot of the time, especially nowadays, studios do somewhat take into account, like, if there's a mass amount of
Right.
people who say they don't like something, they will listen
That's my
to a
point.
certain extent. And that is a larger conversation about how I don't think that's so fucking bullshit for, I think, movie studios to take the opinion, especially like, don't be fucking taking the
Well,
opinions of people on Twitter into account into your own art. Fuck
yeah,
them. Fuck people on Twitter. Do
agree.
what you think is correct, artist.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's a larger conversation.
100%,
But
and we won't go there.
outside of that, I'm like, could not give less of a fuck.
This
But
is
I do understand how that is frustrating, though, if you do care. Yeah.
Well, I care, and I'll tell you why. Just let me explain this really quick, and then I will promise we'll move on.
No, really move on.
Yes. Now we're really moving right along.
No,
Anyway,
really move on.
but yeah, all honesty, like, this is why it bothers me, is because the way that audiences talk to studios are with their wallets. That's why it bothers me. And if they're
That's
only
fair.
gonna pay for the things that have fan service and are only that, again, not the case with Shang-Chi, thank God. But like, if that were the case, I'm saying that, and if that is the case, and that continues to be the case, that's going to become problematic, because that's going to, like, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a cause for only things that are only overloaded with fan service. That would be the cause of that,
Mm-hmm.
if people only pay for that. I hope that's not where we're heading. I really genuinely do, and I hope Shang-Chi's a good
Yeah.
sign. I hope Shang-Chi's a
I
sign
think
of
it
good
will.
faith
This
with it.
movie killed.
Yeah,
This movie killed box off. Excuse me, box office wise.
I think that's the
Got a
other thing.
98% audience score. This movie, oh my God, we're going to be seeing
Yeah,
Shang-Chi for the next
I
10
know,
years in Marvel movies.
and I think
He's probably
that's
going to get a trilogy. Are you kidding me?
I think that's
This
something that's
killed. Yeah.
so amazing to me and chilling in a way, because like, I really do get chills when I talk about this,
Mm-hmm.
is because I I got to say this here, if nowhere else. I mean, when I think back, and this movie made me very emotional when I walked out of it. Like, I did have a couple tears coming out of my eyes, but a lot of the reason though is because I think back to that first Comic-Con when they first announced Shang-Chi. Kevin Feige was given all the upcoming stuff, you know what I mean, and he'd pull out people from the movie. Everybody was coming out and saying, yeah, we're coming out with this, very excited, like, I don't know, Eternals girl, please help me real quick, directing Eternals.
Chloe Zhao.
Chloe Zhao, thank you. Like, Chloe
Chloe
Zhao
Zhao.
came out, and I think she's a brilliant director. This is no insult to her or anything. Chloe Zhao came out. Oh yeah, we're very excited to show you Eternals. It's going to be a great movie, and then, like, all that, what they do.
Yeah.
Destin Daniel Cretton came out with Simu Liu when they just first announced Shang-Chi. These guys were so ecstatic. Like,
Aw.
they felt like they knew they just had something great on their hands. You know what I mean? And this movie, like, to like, it was, I always think back to that, because that was one of the most amazing things to watch, because you got Simu Liu, who just looks so proud to be up on that stage, and like, he was like, I never knew that this would be an opportunity for me. He's like, and he was pumped. He was like, but this movie is gonna be awesome. Like, he was pumped. He was confident. I'd
Yeah.
never seen so much confidence in two people than Destin Daniel Cretton and Simu Liu that day at Comic-Con. But going back to the point here, this movie, especially in the post-pandemic era, or mid-pandemic era, actually, let's be real.
In the pandemic era,
Yeah, don't
I
don't
would just say. Yeah.
don't cut us, YouTube. But mid-pandemic, that's a
Yep.
different conversation. But mid-pandemic era,
Move it full moving on.
this movie, and this is a fact, this movie was expected to make 35 to 45 million dollars. 90 million
90.
dollars. And I just think about Destin Daniel Cretton and Simu Lee that day, and they have to be so fucking proud, you know, like and
Oh,
like
they
really
should. They should be.
and like
They
that's what.
deserve to be.
And when I walked out of this, and it actually was as good as, at least to me, as they were hyping it up, and everybody else in my theater that day, I felt proud of them. You know what I mean? Because they felt like they were kind of,
Mm-hmm.
they felt like outsiders at that Comic-Con, like they were coming into it from another world almost,
Mm-hmm.
like they were trying to make something that was separate from everything else. You know what I mean? And like I really think it does
Mm-hmm.
isolate itself very well while still being in the universe from everything else. Like it does have its own tone. It does take on its own sort of world, and that's what I wanted to see, and I got it, and I was happy about that. But that's my thoughts on it. um Post credits.
Oh yeah.
um
Let's get into these post-credit scenes real quick. Yeah, and then we
yeah.
wrap it up.
Oh yeah,
So
so you go
all
ahead.
right, so let's get to this first one because the entire freaking movie, I sat there thinking, what the hell are the 10 rings? What the hell are the 10 rings? Can somebody please explain to me what are they? Where did they come from? Who made them? Did someone make them? Were they found? Were they made? I need tell me. The whole time I kept expecting to know, and then we get this end credit scene where we find out nobody knows. Bruce Banner doesn't know, Captain Marvel doesn't know, and Wong doesn't know. Shang-Chi doesn't know. We don't know.
Quick question. Quick question.
So I appreciate it. I really appreciated that I was like, thank God they knew that there would be people like me the whole time being like, what the fuck are these rings? Can you just tell me?
Quick question. I'm
Yeah.
being dead fucking serious when I say this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what they were saying in the scene? Because when this scene, this is the
Yeah.
one where people went so insane, I couldn't hear a goddamn word throughout this whole thing.
Really?
Yeah,
Right.
like the second they saw Bruce, the second they saw Captain
Yeah,
Marvel.
that's what they were saying. They were saying, yeah, they were like examining the rings and they were talking about it. I forget, there's some science, whatever, magic
Yeah.
science, whatever language.
Okay.
But yeah, they were talking about it and they had theories about what it could be. But yeah, and Carol said something, she was like, I've never seen this on another planet, or I don't know what to compare it to. She said something like that. uh but yeah, they don't know. That
Yeah.
was the whole thing, was that they are not 100% sure. They don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah, I didn't know because
Yeah.
I tell you, I couldn't hear a damn word. Everybody was so loud when this came, and so was I. I
I
was right there
was.
with
Well,
them.
yeah, my other thought though was like, I was like, Bruce, what happened to you,
Professor
Bruce?
Hulk,
I was like,
what
was there
happened?
Professor Hulk? I was like, was there another Marvel one shot I missed that I was supposed
I
to watch? I was
know.
like, you're what? You're human.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're human?
Uh.
I was like betrayed a little bit. Like a friend of mine forgot to tell me some really
Yeah.
important information, and then they just showed up, and I was like, what do you mean you're a human now?
Yeah. No, I
I was
didn't.
insane. I need answers on that. I need
Yeah.
to know what the hell the 10 rings
Yeah.
are and what, Bruce Banner,
Yeah.
you're a person now?
So, I mean, yeah, in case you want to know
Yeah,
if I like
those are
fan
thoughts running through
service or
my
not,
head.
I mean, I was standing up with the audience clapping too. Because, like, I honestly, I do love fan service. Like, I'm not going to deny that. That's not what I'm trying to say. Like, so when these two folks came up, and I'll tell
Yeah.
you what it was too, and I felt this in the room. It was one of those things where you could just feel what everybody's thinking in the room when they're standing up and clapping. Is it's felt like it's
Yeah.
been so long since we've seen our familiars. You know what I mean? And granted,
Right.
by the way, just as a
Right.
reminder too, I saw this even before the Spider-Man trailer dropped. So like even before we got that really cool Doctor Strange stuff, it's just felt like it's been so long since we've seen
Right. And
some of the
Wong
core
stuff.
group. You know what I mean? And so like I'm sitting there like, Bruce, and say what you will about Captain Marvel, people went just as insane for her. I think they were just happy to see these people. And it
Yeah.
was so nice. It was awesome. And like, you know, obviously we knew Brie Larson was going to be in the movie, but when it ended, I didn't really know, you know,
Yes.
I was like, oh, well, it's over. You know, she could show up at a post-credit scene.
Oh,
I
I for
doubt
sure
it.
knew. I was like, cool, we're doing post-credit scene.
Yeah. And I
The
think
second it ended, I was like, oh, cool, she's doing a post-credit scene. Can't
I
wait.
genuinely do think that I think fan service plays best in these movies when they are in post-credit scenes, especially because you're not putting it in the actual
They
movie.
do tend to they hit harder.
They do.
They have it makes that extra punch.
Always works better
by putting it in the end credit scene,
because you're not overloading your movie with it, but yet you're giving us a little taste, you know, and like
and it's kind of like a next week on the next week's episode kind of a thing. That's how I always kind of feel like they treat it, and that's definitely how that felt. It definitely felt like a next week's and next scenes from next week's episode
and
kind of a thing.
I felt like myself and that entire room were all thinking the same thing. God damn it, I missed these. God damn it, I missed these.
Mm.
Like, because the TV shows didn't have the best of post-credit scenes, let's be honest. And like,
Hmm.
when you look at Black Widow had fine post-credit scenes. I was happy to see
I liked
Val
it.
and
Yeah.
Florence Pugh, and I like what it was setting up. But to see the
Hmm.
post-credit scene finally give us back the familiars, and that's the other thing too, Sammy. I think it is coming off of a pandemic. You know what I mean? I think that just brings that extra happiness with this one. You know, because it's like
Hmm.
after that pandemic, we need some of this happiness. You know, we need some fan
Yeah,
service. We do. We do need a little bit. Come on. Give us that fan service
we
after
do.
that pandemic, especially when we've gone so long without it. And Marvel's been in kind of a not a horrible one, but kind of a slump for me, you know, lately. And I think that this just got it right back out. So I'm so thrilled to see it. And now we kind of know where things are going a little bit too. I think that's the other great thing about it. We know that like we kind of know that the 10 rings are now going to be incorporated into Doctor Strange and carried into Captain Marvel quite a bit because you know Captain Marvel's here. That's got to have something to do with Captain Marvel.
She-Hulk, maybe.
She-Hulk even because Bruce
Yeah.
is there. So we know how it's all going to come together now in a way. Like we know not how it's going to come together, but we know where it's going. We have kind of a direction finally, I think. I think that's another great thing this movie did while tying it back into the film that we just watched because Shang-Chi and Katie were there too. But let me tell you. So finally the audience
Hmm.
cools down a little bit and I'm catching the last bits of
I know you
dialogue.
loved it.
Wong doing karaoke. Everybody went insane again, and we were laughing so hard. It was so good. Welcome to the Hotel California. It's great. Great. Come on.
No, it's funny. Yeah, I like that. I didn't like die,
Oh,
fall
God.
over laughing,
It's
but
my
I
favorite
did one of the
gag.
did one
It's
of
my
those.
favorite gag in any Marvel anything is Wong doing karaoke because it was so unexpected and like it's my favorite one. I cried laughing.
Yeah.
I was so everybody did though in that theater that we were
Wow.
crying. It was a
Love
riot.
that for you.
Great
Love that for
stuff.
the theater. Love it. We love
Anyway,
to see it.
second post credit scene.
Nice. Yes. Jog my memory. What was it? I was just thinking about it. What was it? Second post credit scene
Training. It
was
almost looked like
with.
training in a way. You know, like a training
Oh
sequence
my
of the
God,
yeah.
that's right. It was the sister. It was the thing with the sister, right? Of
Yeah.
her sitting in the chair because she like leans back and does the whole thing, and then the training. That's yes, because it's right. It's directly in front of the where all of the things are being held.
Yeah.
The thing that the dad was trying to break down. It's directly in front of
Right.
that now. Right.
Which is cool.
Yes,
But
I forgot about that. That was cool.
it was cool. But it's
And
all
again, respect of the having the boy.
yeah.
Again, the thing is like it was a little on the nose and again a little male gaze-ish to be like her biggest problem was that she couldn't train with the boys. And to me, I'm like, it sounds like to me, her biggest problem is the trauma she faced with her father, and that she doesn't feel like she can ever receive true love, especially from a man, because her father not only rejected her, but then her brother left her when she was 14, just without any words. So I don't think her problem is that she didn't train with the boys. I think her problems are that she has a lot of trauma and abandonment issues. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it was nice to see it come to fruition. But again, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a basic person with basic needs. When I saw the guys and the girls fighting together, I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
Good.
It was cool.
It was like nice.
It was cool, but like
not gonna lie.
I also think it's another thing though too where we just don't know what it all means yet. You know what I mean? I think that there's a lot more to that than
it read a little villainous to me.
Yeah. I think it means a lot.
It read
more.
A little villainous
me
to
too.
me.
I thought the same thing, Sammy. Yeah, I think it means a lot more yet, and we'll find out. I'm excited to see what that what that's going to tie into. Is that like possibly like building up an army for the multiverse of madness? Is that a possibility? Because that's a cool idea, and I would love to see it. Cool. I'm here for it, and I mean,
me too.
So yeah, overall, guys, I love this movie. If you couldn't tell already, and I'm high on it, and I'm gonna watch it about 6 more times probably in the theater because I loved it that much. We'll see. I want to see it a lot.
And you could only watch it in theaters.
That's
to be fair.
My only
it's only available in theaters.
My only option.
Yep, we're back. We're back into it.
Can't pay the $30. This is one I'd pay $30 for. That's the shitty thing. This is like one I would pay for to see it again. You know what I mean? It's like I really would to watch it at home. This one. It's like finally you got one that's worth it.
And to have it on to watch it. And it would basically be like owning it. Like you would basically own the movie. Right. You could watch it whenever you want, fast forward, do whatever you want.
yeah,
Yeah.
this would be worth my $30. Like, you couldn't do this
Right.
one. It's like, fuck you, Bob Chapek. I'm sorry. I'm
Fuck
done.
you, Bob Chapek,
I'm done.
honestly.
Did you hear the Scarlett
I've
Johansson stuff?
yeah.
Next week we're talking about Scarlett Johansson because that's a whole thing, but that's going down right now.
Oh, is there more to it? I know the things, but has there been updates?
Sammy, I'm gonna
If
put.
there are updates, I don't know about
We're
it.
not talking about it in depth, but I'm gonna say this: Bob Chapek is a fucking moron. He is a fucking
So we've known this.
not to the extent that he is.
Yeah.
This is it goes so deep. He's a fucking moron. I'm sorry, Bob Chapek. I
We've
loved your
we
movie.
talked so I mean, I was gonna say we, but I personally have talked a lot of shit about Bob Iger in my time. But you know what I mean? But then you don't realize how good you had it until it's gone, is what I'm saying
Let me say
for
this
me.
too, real simply.
Yeah.
I'll put this simply.
Hmm.
Last thing here. I this is the because this is the basic of it. They Scarlett Johansson at one point in time, she was already having problems and they knew this. She was willing to play ball and come to a compromise. They went to Bob Chapek. They told him this, and he said, "No thanks. I got guys that handle all this." Instead of just like giving her like she was willing to basically take like a
Excuse me,
minimum amount.
sir, excuse me. You're the CEO of the fucking Walt Disney Company. Do you not? It's what part of you're the CEO of the Walt motherfucking Disney Company are you not clicking with, Bob?
That's what
I
irritates
don't
me.
understand.
Because when Bob
That's
Iger was in
irritating.
charge, Bob
Yeah.
Iger would have
He
handled
got
it
it. He was like, he would have handled it. He would
right
have
then and there.
personally, like, he wanted, you know what? Even if he did hand it over to a guy, I feel like Bob Iger would have at least have been like, yeah, no, of course, I'll take care of it. Like, yeah, absolutely. And he would have like personally called the guys to handle it and personally explain it to them and make sure
Yeah.
and like supervise them. You know what I mean? He wouldn't just be like, I don't know, there are guys for that.
I'll tell you, Sammy, when next week
Yeah, I
we
didn't realize how good I had it until he left.
Yep. I tell you, when you read
Yeah.
this, what's this public record, this new one, you're going to be baffled at all
Uh
this
huh.
because it actually
Damn.
outlines the actual events now. Like now we actually know everything that transpired. So when
Ooh,
you read it,
tea.
you're going to go, are you kidding me? That's what I did when I read it. I was like shaking. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, come on now. I had it in my phone, so it was more like this.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Ooh, tea. Hot tea.
Yeah. Wild. Anyway, we can wrap up.
Damn. Perfect. All right. Well, yeah, again, guys, that is, I know it sounds like I hated the movie. I did not. I thought it was quite enjoyable. It was all right. Kind of middle of the road for me if I was going to rank all my Marvel movies. Probably fall somewhere in the middle, not in the bottom tier for sure, but also probably not in the top epsilon of the classics for me. But really enjoyable, really great. Can't wait to see more from not only the MCU later this year, but I can't wait to see more Shang-Chi. Can't wait to see what's in store. Really freaking excited. We're in a very good place, I think, in Marvel. We have been all year, and they keep getting better. It's a beautiful time to be a Marvel fan in the current year. All right, with that, so next week, that is going to be it for movie night on Shang-Chi. Next week and the week after, we're going to be doing a Audrey Hepburn double feature. That is both of our Audrey Hepburn is one of both of our
Yeah.
favorite actresses, actors, people in Hollywood, period, that ever have lived. And we're doing two of my favorite. These are two of my favorite movies of all time, but I think maybe two of her best performances. We're doing Roman Holiday next week, and then the week after, we're doing Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh yeah.
So check those out if you haven't seen them. They are phenomenal,
So excited.
phenomenal
So
films.
excited.
I'm
I really
so.
am.
Whew, I don't want to spoil anything, but like there's certain parts of Roman Holiday that I could talk about for an hour. Like there's like 20-minute chunks, could talk about them for an hour.
I have a
So excited to talk about it.
I have a
Yes.
question.
Everything.
If I could pull it off, if I could make it happen, can Adam come on the Breakfast at Tiffany's one? He
Oh my
loves that
God.
movie
Hell
too.
yeah.
He loves that movie too. So
Hell yes, he can.
I think he'd be mad if I didn't
Abso-fucking-lutely.
invite him for it. So I want to make sure I can invite him before we do it. So maybe guys,
Absolutely.
no, not guarantee. We'll try to get Adam on,
Mhm.
but yeah, I'll see what I can do.
The thing is, I've only ever talked about Breakfast at Tiffany's. This just popped into my head. I think I've only talked about it with women. And that's a very interesting movie, I feel like, to talk about with men and women. You know what I mean? It's not just one, it's not just a movie for men or about a man. It's not just a movie about a woman for a woman. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's a very interesting, I feel like, movie to talk about with someone of the different sex.
Fuck it.
So I'm hyped about
We
that.
can make it a party. My buddy Josh loves it too. I could bring him on board if you
Hell
want as well.
yeah. That
Because
would be
like
fun.
there'd be three men you get perspectives of who
Make it a
all like the
party. I
movie.
want to
Yeah.
know. Yeah, because then maybe I can give you some insight too. Maybe there's some parts of the female experience that
True.
aren't 100% clear that I can talk about. That would be fun.
Yeah, well, the secret is we
Yeah.
just all think Audrey Hepburn's super hot. That's it. No, I'm
Oh
just
my
kidding.
God,
I'm
she is
kidding. She is
stunning.
stunning, though.
Though she
She is
is
stunning. Let's be
stunning in that
real.
movie.
It's all part
Oh,
of it,
she's
but no,
everything.
she's a great
Oh,
character.
she's
She's
stunning.
such a
Yeah.
good character in that movie. I mean, oh
Oh
my
my God,
God.
it's incredible. She freaking comes out at one point just in like a sheet. Like she's in
Yeah.
her like bed sheet and her hair is like all up and she's like,
Oh,
what? And she looks gorgeous.
I know.
Like, oh my God,
Incredible.
absolutely 100%. No, that's a valid reason. I'd be like, I'm not even mad if that's why someone liked
No,
that movie. I'm like, cool.
I think we all love it
You're
for so
right.
many more reasons. I mean,
No, yeah,
but
yes.
yeah, that's part of it.
It's a
I'd be
beautiful,
lying if
beautiful
that wasn't
movie.
part of
Yeah.
it. It's a gorgeous movie.
Mhm.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
but that is in 2 weeks. Next week will be Roman Holiday, her first movie, and the movie she won an Academy Award for, starring Gregory Peck as well. The movie's phenomenal. So that'll be the next 2 weeks. But until then, I am on Instagram at Samee Ramirez 14, on Twitter and Stereo at Samee Ramirez. And you can find the show everywhere on Twitter, Instagram at Anorex Official. And then, Dom, where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me hosting every week the Anorex Entertainment Podcast. Next week, I think, is going to be really interesting. I do have some stuff planned, actually, for next week. With
Ooh.
Cisco leaving, I think that this is a really good chance for all of us to kind of start fresh and rebuild with Jose. And I think that you guys are going to really like what we got planned. We're going to definitely, this is going to be something new. Not going to happen every week, but next week, I'm going to actually have we're going to open up a dialogue and actually talk shop a little bit on air, which I think is going to be an interesting thing for everybody, because I've definitely
Ooh,
been brainstorming
nice.
some new ideas and stuff that I want to run by people, but we're going to
Mhm.
do it on air, which I think will be really cool for everybody to kind of get a
What are you
behind the
gonna do?
scenes look
Because
at
again,
things.
this is it's a conversation. The fact of just making a video and putting it on YouTube inherently makes this a conversation.
Yeah.
So it's hard to make changes about something when you only have one half of the perspective conversation at play.
Exactly. And so like
Yeah.
that's why I want the audience to be able to get let in on
Exactly.
it so they understand. So
That was a fancy way of saying the audience should have an opinion.
true. Well, I think that a lot of that too is like if when we do transition to a slightly new style that I kind of want to go for with it, I think that it's going to feel so much smoother if they're let in. And I think that's part of, I've made a really great decision with the show, actually, and I'm going to run it by the other two on the show, and I think that they're going to be happy about it as well. So we're going to do that. And anyway, so you guys can also find me on Twitter at Dom_Martino_ on Instagram Dom_Martino_ official. Please go over to Stereo, follow myself, and go follow Jose Espinel over there too. We've been doing Star Wars Sunday every week.
Yes.
Got to do more with Sammy. I'm sure once summertime comes upon us again, we'll
I
start
know,
doing more
yeah.
stereos when she has more time too. So we'll get around to that as well.
Yeah,
at
it's
some
been
point.
rough, man.
Yeah.
It's school time.
Yeah.
Time is not of the essence.
Understandable 100%. I appreciate every bit of
Yeah.
time that you pour into this, so thank you very much. But anyway, guys, make sure you do all that for sure, and check us out on Spotify too. Actually, sorry, Sammy, that's your job. Go ahead and
Yes.
promote that. And do.
Oh yeah, check us out on Spotify. We're on Spotify. We got a merch link right down that way, merch.streamelements.com/anorex. And then again, the show is everywhere at Anorex Official. Come back next week for part 1 of Audrey Hepburn double feature. Until then, you got anything else?
One quick interjection. I just want to make sure I do this.
Yes.
Please go check out Cisco's last episode. We had Mike Deacon
Yes,
on. I thought it was a really solid episode, honestly, guys. It was one of my favorite ones we've done. So.
Featuring Mike Deacon from the What the Show podcast of the, if anybody's in the Schmodown world, might know of him. So yeah, check that out. He's on that episode as well.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, Sammy, you can take us out.
Awesome. All right. So with that, we're gonna head out. So have a great night. Thanks for watching, guys.